Council, the first City Council meeting of January 2024. It's nice to have everybody here. Our opening tonight will be presented by Councilmember Mike Blackham, who will then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Turn the time over to Councilmember Blackham.
I'll just say a prayer, and then when I'm done, we'll all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father in heaven, we are indeed grateful that we can be here in Kaysville tonight. We are so blessed to live in a city like Kaysville and to be able to associate with their neighbors and friends here. Please bless that this governing body will handle their business in a respectable manner. Please bless our city employees that they can carry out each and every day the tasks that they need to do, that they can do it safely, and that the people around them are safe also. When we're done tonight and we all need to travel home, let's hopefully watch over us that we can all do that safely and in peace. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you'll all rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, as we start our meeting, I would like to, I didn't get a chance to ask you guys before, would someone make a motion to move action item, let's see, action item C, what are we doing, Jason? Action item,
Right, switching action item 6B with 6C,
right, yes,
inversing those.
yes. So that we don't, so people don't have to wait if they don't want to stay.
I'll make a motion that we switch action item 6B with 6C.
Nice second.
All right, thank you so much. I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So motion carries. So just for those listening and those watching, 6A will be, it'll be 6A and then 6C and then 6B. So we'll just switch that around a little bit. Okay. At the beginning of our meetings, we have an opportunity. It's called public comment. So we have a couple of people signed up to speak. The way it works is that you'll have 3 minutes to come up and speak about whatever you'd like to present to us tonight. We will listen to you. We don't take questions, but we will make note of your questions if you happen to have them. And we'll do our best to address those questions afterwards. So we have a couple of people signed up. So you'll have 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, there's a timer on the screen. Your microphone will die. So you won't be broadcasting anymore. So that's your cue that your 3 minutes is up, okay? All right, Aaron, Juan, Jesse, and Jim, if you'll come up in that order, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Jones. I live on 100 North and 150 West, directly behind Mr. Carl. I feel like we have a duty. This is the forefront of shaping our town and our city and the culture of this city. It all happens right here with this group of people in this room. I feel like everybody in Old Town Kaysville has been caught in the blinders, and we have not been recognized or have been thought about. Since the building of the car wash, the amount of pollution in every way you can name it, noise, light, everything is unbearable. I don't blame Mr. Car Wash. I don't blame the contractors. They're simply doing their jobs. The city allowed this to happen. Now, since then, without exception, there have been many things that have happened in that neighborhood that are contrary to the city's own policies for Old Town Kaysville. And I believe those have been violated. Not only is my largest asset now my largest liability, which is my home because of my property value, it's an unpleasant place to live. I can't live there. We're looking to move. We're looking to leave the city now. I've seen a lot of shaping and molding happening in these meetings over the past few years that don't represent Kaysville or the citizens here. I hope we keep that in mind, and I hope we keep that at the forefront of our thoughts moving forward when we are shaping our city. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Juan.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor, City Council members, staff, community of Kaysville. My name is Juan Moncada. I'm Director of Operations for Mr. Car Wash. Just wanted to say a few things and first lead by saying that our priority as a company is to be a good neighbor, a good steward in the community, and we have full intentions on prioritizing that, and that will continue to be a priority. Kaysville's no exception. So we're here today to first and foremost lead with that. A couple of things to consider just regarding these recent concerns. First is, our company, Mr. Car Wash, complies with any and all governmental regulations and requirements, to acquire the permits and licenses, needed to operate and conduct business, and we've done that with Kaysville. Another thing to consider is we've, I think the challenging part for everyone on this is that we're learning of these things post-construction. With notices that have gone out, we get meetings ahead of time, and wish that, we could have learned of these things ahead of time and prevented this, but however, no concerns were vocalized at that time. But nonetheless, we'll finish off by saying that with the intention to be a good neighbor, want to let the community, members of the community know that we, loud and clear, we've heard the concerns, we're working through that, and appreciate everyone's patience as we do so. And, to the City Council, we will absolutely comply and work together, in any capacity and as needed, to work through this. And just want to say thank you to everybody as we do so, and appreciate everyone's patience as we work it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse?
Thank you. This is in regards to the Mr. Car Wash. I appreciate the time to address you. I also wanted to start out saying that I'm greatly encouraged by the conversations that have happened thus far between the city and Mr. and grateful to see that representatives from Mr. Car Wash showing up. Spoke with them and already began discussions, and that's what I wanted to get across and ensure is that we as residents will be able to make sure that our position and concerns are heard in continuing discussions, and we can be kept in the loop in conversations that are happening towards a resolution. I also wanted to just provide, for your benefit, some visuals that I'll leave with you here. And this is just to help, if you haven't been to the area at the time of day, just to see what the impact it's having. So this is in a yard immediately adjacent to the car wash. And we can see just the intense glow that we're dealing with. And this is something that I think is pretty well understood, but just wanted to make sure you had these visuals. And the other pervasive nuisance is the noise from the vacuums. And so what we're looking for is two things. One is what we see as a solution is a substantive wall that would be sufficient to block out the noise. Also the light from the vacuums, which is quite intense but a little bit lower. There's been talk about shutting off lights on that south tower. We don't feel that that's sufficient enough. That is really just a personal billboard, and it only faces those properties. So we are looking for removal of the Mr. signage and also that star signage, and turning off those orange glow is really what we feel will be a good resolution. And so we're hoping that that can be kept in mind and representative in further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who can I leave this with?
You can just bring it up. Thank you. Jim. Jim Pearson?
I'm Jim Pearson. I live on 145 North, 2nd West, across from the Mr. Car Wash. And I applaud their, what they were saying about how they would like to help the people in the neighborhood be happy with their being a neighbor. And they could very easily do that by shutting off those lights that are way in the back. That said, I would also like to bring forth the fact that the #1 bullet on the Kaysville City Council general plan is to preserve the historic neighborhoods that we live in, historic Kaysville, which all this construction is going on in, because I know it's been zoned commercial, and now they're trying to rezone it. The effect of that will be a big impact on our property values in that neighborhood. So I would urge the council to take into consideration any impact that would have on our property values, such as the fact that the buildings are going to be, there's not going to be any setback. You know, the housing in the area is set back, but the proposed buildings are not. They're right up to the sidewalk. I don't believe that's works with our neighborhood as far as keeping the historic value. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you signing up to speak to that, to the car wash specifically as an issue. Just wanted to give you just a quick brief update, just what we have done. I know that Melinda's had several conversations with Mr. Car Wash directly. I stopped by today, got to talk to them as well. Jason, our city manager, met with some neighbors this afternoon. So I want you to know there's a lot of collaborative communication and conversations happening, and we understand what you're saying. This morning on my way to the gym, it was 6-ish in the morning. I took some pictures and drove the neighborhood as well, and then did it last night. And so I understand your concerns, and I saw them up close and personal, and I'm sure other council members have done that as well. So we'll continue to work with Mr. Car Wash. I know that they want to be a good neighbor and do everything that they can. We really appreciate you being here. And so we'll continue to update you as we have more information. Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's great, Mayor, thank you, and appreciate the sincerity that Mr. Car Wash has shown in trying to work out some of these issues, so we'll continue to talk with them.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so number 3 on the agenda is presentation and awards. First of all, we're going to let our city recorder, Anne Marie, swear in our newly elected city council members, who are right here, Nate Jackson, Mike Blackham, and who else was on the ballot? Oh, yeah, John. Councilmember John Adams. So take it away. Come on down, guys.
Up front, dudes.
Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Swan Adams,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Should we get a picture?
Oh, council picture? Good thing you dressed up.
Come in front of us. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Wait, can we get one of, I'm just kidding.
Thank you and congratulations to our newly elected, reappointed, or re-elected council members. It's exciting to be able to continue working with the three of you. All right, now I'm going to turn the time over to our, our audit, for the audit report. Okay, come on up. I was thinking Dean, so no, yep.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Aaron Hickson. I am an audit partner with HBME LLC, the firm that has been engaged to do the financial audit as of and for the year ended June 30th, 2023. This report is due on December 31st of each year, and I just wanted to assure you, because usually I am here in December, but due to some conflicts, I am presenting today, but the report was timely submitted to the state of Utah, and so I just wanted to make that clear. I wanted to start by saying that we issued a unmodified or clean opinion, and I don't know if you're following along or not, so if you are, I'm on page 13. The opinion here just says that in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city. And that is the highest opinion we can give as auditors. Currently, the city has 16 funds, half of them being governmental funds, 6 of them being business type funds, and then 2 of them being permanent endowment style funds. And let's see here. Overall, the net position of the city, or the equity of the city, grew by about 7.5%. Fund balances grew also, largely due to intergovernmental funding related to road projects, and that was well known and from UDOT, Davis County, and even some of Farmington City due to the corridor exits and entrances. The overall, I'll just briefly talk about some changes, and then we'll move to the compliance reports. If you notice on page 24, year-over-year changes were pretty much similar to the prior year, except for there was 2 of your funds were reported as a business type fund, and that was changed last year to a governmental fund. And so you'll see a very large change because roads, assets, and ambulance operations moved from business type to governmental. So it goes from $75 million to $13 million in capital grants and related in expenditures. That's the only reason why. Also, there was a large fluctuation in electric expenditures, and that's just because the cost of power does fluctuate with UAMPS. And let's see here. The other big change I wanted to bring to your attention is relates to the URS, or the Utah Retirement Systems pension. Last year it was an asset. This year it's a liability, and it's a big swing. It's about a $3 million swing. This is not anything that any of you can do anything about. Again, this is just an allocation of the unfunded portion of the retirement net pension liability and assets. And I just want to let you know, right now, using the discount rate, it's $1.9 million liability. If they were to, the actuaries were to use a 1% difference, if it was 1% higher, it would be a $4.3 million asset. If it was 1% less, it would be a $9.5 million liability. So it just fluctuates greatly. I just wanted to bring you to that attention. And then finally, well, the other reports that we are required to issue surround your internal controls environment, as well as the state audit compliance guide. The state of Utah requires us to look at certain procedures and practices at all municipalities and ensure that you are abiding by the state law in that regard. As far as your internal controls, we did not find any issues that we felt needed to be reported. As is always the case during an audit, we will find small things that we talk to management about during the audit. And if they are very small, we just say, hey, why don't you make these small procedural changes, and we find those all the times. So I don't even know what those are, but I do know that we talk about them during the audit. And then as far as the state audit compliance guide, there were two findings issued in the prior year and one finding issued this year. Very small. I always preface with most of the procedures that we do for the state audit compliance guide do not have a threshold. And so if you were to be required to do something 1 million times and one time you didn't, we still have to report that one time. And so that's, I just wanted to let you know, and I feel that's important to know. The one finding that we found is that there were 2 departments that had a over budget issue. One of them was clearly due to rounding. It was $123 over, and that's just because there's some roundings. The other one is in your Parks and Rec department. It was about $170,000 just over budget, and that's mostly because there were a lot of changes to the account structures that were done during the year, and I think it was just a small oversight. That's all I think. Management is aware of it. It'll be remedied. They'll monitor the budget amendments more closely. We're satisfied with the approach that management will take, and I don't feel like there's any issues. The other 2 findings are at the back of the report. They've been satisfied, and so we don't have any issues. You will not get any communication from the state of Utah because they don't consider any finding a problem until it's done twice in a row. And so this is not the case with Kaysville City. So does anybody have any questions?
I have just a quick question on the over budget of 170,000. Was it just a reallocation of one account, just for people who are listening or watching, to another, and it was
Yes.
just
So
not
what
included, or?
happens when we look at things, and if something is in a different category or department or requires an adjustment, often what happens is the actual amounts move, and we try our best to make sure that the budgets move as well, and sometimes that does or does not happen. And so we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that, through the operating budget of Kaysville City. And so this amount is very small. And so I don't think it's a problem at all. I don't want anyone listening to my voice here or remotely to think that this is due to an issue within the city. I would say that this is probably the most common finding that we have across all our municipalities is budget amendments.
Meaning that just there was, the budget was higher and we didn't have a meeting to amend it or something? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Correct. That's
Okay.
all.
So it doesn't mean that the budget ended with a deficit?
Right,
At the end of
absolutely
the-
not.
Okay.
And
Just for
usually,
clarification for people.
when the expense isn't budgeted, that typically also means the revenue isn't either, so the revenue is there. And so it's usually a negative impact, a net zero impact.
Okay.
So,
And does anyone else have any questions?
No, that was mine.
All right, thank you so much for your presentation,
You
and
bet. Thank
great
you.
job, Dean and team. Thank you. All right. Exactly. Anyone have any conflicts of interest to declare? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does someone want to make a motion? Councilmember Oaks?
Come on. May I ask one question?
Oh, sure,
on
yes.
item C?
Sure.
My one question with the landscaping is, do we as a city have because I saw there was about $630,000 that will be reimbursed by the state, but do we have an idea what our bill, how much it's going to cost us?
Point of just clarification, should we have this moved? Okay. Okay, right.
Pass the other 2 items.
Okay.
Consent items, and then
Would you make a motion to do that then,
Yeah,
Councilmember Oaks?
I'll make a motion that we approve consent item A and consent item B and remove item C from consent.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All right, Councilmember Hunt.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now let's talk about that. Go ahead and answer.
Can I speak to that? Yes, Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
So the short answer is we're still working on identifying how we're going to use those funds. They have to be spent by September of 2025. But there's a citizens group that's been working on providing recommendations to Kaysville as well as the other cities along the West Davis corridor. We want to have kind of a coordinated, unified approach to how we want to landscape the corridor. There's different ideas that are being thrown around, but right now we're still trying to work on identifying that. So it's not a lot of money, frankly. It sounds like a lot, but when it doesn't go too far. So one of the requests from the citizens group is that the city has tried to put some buffering trees along the corridor. So that idea is being explored. And I know Mayor's been involved, I think, on some of those meetings. And if you have any more information on what kinds of ideas are being considered, Mayor, but I know that's one of the main recommendations.
Right, as you mentioned, trees mostly, I think, just to kind of beautify it as much as we can within the scope and money that we have available, so.
So, follow on? So then my follow-on question, because it's really not that much money, where does the rest come? You know, if we go exceed that, which we probably will.
Well, I guess it's if we decide to exceed it, and it'd have to come from, obviously, the city's accounts and general fund, I would imagine, unless there's opportunities for, grant money to be leveraged. But I believe that the highway beautification grants are very, very few and far between. So I think our goal is, frankly, to try to stick within that budget as much as possible, and see if we can leverage that somehow I've got some ideas. I'm speaking with Cole about it, and we'll eventually talk with the citizens group as well, but hate to spend more money than we have, frankly, so.
On landscaping. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Blackham.
So my understanding is, though, that if it does exceed the 630, we do have the opportunity to ask UDOT actually for more. Is that not true?
That's my understanding, that we can ask them, yeah. I'm not sure.
Say if for some reason it does go over budget, and we can go back and say, you didn't give us enough. My understanding is that we have the ability to ask for more.
I believe so. I'm not sure how much
I mean,
is
I don't
out
know
there,
either,
but yeah.
but. Okay.
Good point. Thank you.
Well, and to your point, Councilmember Blackham and Councilmember Oaks, we could do that, but our goal, like Jason mentioned, is to not do that. We want to live within our means, yes. Work with the budget that we have, so. Okay, that being said, does anyone else have any questions about that? Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Blackham.
So there's a deal in there where it talks in the contract about power. And it says that Kaysville City will be responsible for all power if we put in sprinkler system and all that. And then it says something further about UDOT. We don't have to pay for their power. If they put something in that requires power, we don't have to pay their power bill. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay, all right, because it was just the way it was worded in the contract. It said, we pay for ours, and then later there was something that said about Kaysville pays for all power or something, and I just want to make sure we're not paying for their lights out on the right of way.
Yes.
Well, theoretically, you are paying for their life.
Actually, there you go.
But, right. Council members, do we need more information on this, or is this
No.
okay to move?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve consent item C.
And I second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Comments? No? Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our action items. It's action item 6A, King Clarion Annexation Amendment. I'll turn the time over to Melinda to present this for us.
Well, hopefully this is a straightforward item. We approved the King Clarion annexation in 2021, I think it was in August. It subsequently was recorded, and a while after that, the applicant, Mr. Kingston, who I think is here tonight, was informed by the county that the legal description on the recorded plat was incorrect. So in order to correct that, the council needs to approve the amended plat, and then we'll have to get a new certificate of annexation from the Lieutenant Governor's office and take all of that down to the county recorder's office and get it recorded again.
Okay, thank you. Just a second here. Let's see if we have anyone. We don't have anyone signed up to speak to this item, so council, do you have any questions, concerns? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve action item A, King Clarion Annexation Amendment.
All right, thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Nope. Okay, Councilmember Oaks.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So now we are on action item 6C, which is rezone of at 196 North, 200 West, and 166 North, 200 West from general commercial to include a mixed-use zoning overlay. I'll turn the time over to Melinda to present this.
Okay, there are some.
And then we do have people signed up to speak, so as soon as she's done presenting, you'll have your opportunity.
Okay, so as the mayor said, this is an application for addition of an overlay to the general commercial property located at 166 and 196 North, 200 West. They've requested a mixed-use overlay, which essentially allows them to add a residential use into the commercial use. Our zoning code, 1727, the mixed-use code, requires that there's a lot of upfront information before the approval process comes through, and I'll go through all of that, but just real briefly, the combined properties are 0.71 acres, and they're proposing a 2-story office building and then 2 residential buildings that would each have 3 units. One would be townhomes and one would be a studio unit. Just so we know where we're talking about, this is the property located at the corner of 200 West and 200 North on the southeast side. It's directly next door to the Mr. Car Wash that we were speaking about earlier. When we look at a rezone, we do want to kind of look at what the existing area is zoned, and you can see here from this slide that we do have a variety of zoning in the area. So this is zoned general commercial. We also have central commercial that is in the adjacent area. We have the residential town site zoning, which is single family, and then some public use zones as well, and some RM that's north of the property. So also when we're considering a rezone, what we want to do is just look towards our general plan and see what guidance that provides for us. So when the general plan was created, this was before my time, but there was an extensive public involvement process, and through that process, the community determined that they would like to see mixed use on this property that's in question. You might not be able to see, but I have the property highlighted there on a little red box, and that brown coloring is the mixed use. The general plan also went through a process of determining what the community would like to define as the city center. And so this is the map that ended up being the preferred concept for the city center. And that's important because there are some particular goals and objectives that the general plan sets up for property that is within that city center. So I'll be brief with these, but chapter 1, 3, and 5 do contain quite a bit of information that supports this application. We have the goals of making Kaysville City Center distinct and identifiable from adjacent neighborhoods and surrounding cities. The specific objective with that is to improve the commercial frontage and streetscapes along Main Street and 200 North, which this property is on 200 North. The chapter 1 also discusses providing a range of housing options and price points. It talks about ensuring land uses are compatible and that there are buffers to soften impacts between differing uses. I'll talk a little bit more about that on a different slide. And then, of course, encouraging diverse commercial uses to meet the needs of our community and visitors. So in this area, we don't really have an office building, it's mostly just retail. And so the addition of an office building would diversify some of the commercial opportunities in the area. Chapter 3 is our housing and neighborhoods chapter, and I know the council knows this, but for the sake of the residents who may not know, the state has, over the last several years, really put forward requirements on all cities that we adopt and then implement a moderate income housing plan. And the chapter 3 is where we have that moderate income housing plan located. And essentially it talks about having a full range of housing opportunities, which was similar to the goal in chapter 1. But it does talk about having a higher density stock and mixed use within the city center to diversify housing. It speaks to rezoning for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. That doesn't always ensure that it will be, but oftentimes you're a little bit more dense, you're a little bit more affordable as well. And then it speaks to zoning or rezoning for higher density near mixed use zones or existing commercial centers, which this definitely fits in there. And then chapter 5 is our economic development and prosperity chapter. Talks about promoting Kaysville City Center, which again, this is in to promote to redevelopment and to strengthen commercial areas. And then also talks about allowing for mixed use development in identified areas, which again, this does fit within that. So a little bit more about the project. In total, it would be 3 buildings. One is the 2-story office building that would be 10,280 square feet. That is 49% of the overall total square footage of the project. Our code requires it be 30%, so they're exceeding that by 19%. There's, again, the 2 buildings, one 2-story townhome that would have 3 townhomes in it. It would have a basement and two floors above the ground, and each would be 3-bedroom. There's 3 studio units in a separate building, and then total there's 36 parking stalls, which meets the requirement for the office space, and then there's 12 private garage stalls. So each of those townhomes and studios would have a 2-car garage for each of them. The building heights are within what the general commercial zone allows, which is up to 35 feet. Actually, you can go higher if you get a conditional use permit. But the office building is proposed to be 32 feet tall, and the townhomes 33 feet tall, and then the studios would be 23 feet 9 inches tall. So all of that does fit within the requirements of the mixed use code. This is just some renderings that have been submitted with the project. Again, with this particular zone, we do require a lot of upfront information. So a lot of times when we have rezones, we don't have this level of detail. But this is just a variety of viewpoints of the office. And then this is a rendering of the townhomes. And this slide shows the studio apartments that would be, so the townhomes would be adjacent to 200 West, and then these would be back behind. So they would be in between the townhomes, and then they would butt up directly to the Mr. Car Wash site. We did have this in front of the Planning Commission on December 14th, and they held a public hearing. There were some concerns that were brought up by the citizens, and these are, I think, fairly common concerns when addressing a rezone. Traffic and safety was one of those concerns. There was a traffic analysis that was submitted with the application, and there, after review with our city engineer and public works department, they don't have any concerns about the traffic that's being generated from this project. I think at peak hours it was going to be either 12 or 16 vehicles. It's really not a lot when you're speaking to the volumes that 200 North carries. Another question that came up during the public hearing was whether or not, or if there should be access coming off of 200 North from this project. And we do not own 200 North. That's a UDOT facility, so they would not grant access. In fact, they required Mr. Car Wash to combine their access with Golden West Credit Union. So the only access to the property will come off of 200 West, and that single point of ingress and egress meets code as well. There was also concerns about protecting single-family neighborhoods, stormwater and drainage. Stormwater is dealt with through the building permit application process. They do have to submit their stormwater plans. It has to meet our standards. And we will require that they connect into the storm drain that goes through 200 North. There were concerns about privacy and density. I did some quick math today, and with 6 units on 0.71 acres, this is, it's about 8.5 units per acre. Our R16 zone is 7.5 units per acre, so this is about as, uh-oh, my screen just went blank. This is about as dense as our lowest single-family residential. Oh dear. Got all messed up. So, okay, you're just gonna see my other slideshow. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezone request, and let's see. Sorry, that just threw me off with this.
Yeah, take time to bring it back.
I don't know what it's doing. Let me just try this again.
Good time to point out, putting a brick wall on this one. You don't have to come back for a year from now and say you should have used it.
Mr. Dancy, thank you.
Okay, all right, I think I'm back on track. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval, and it was a unanimous vote. 6 commissioners were there. I did want to speak just a little bit more about some of the concerns the neighbors brought up. So one of the things in speaking about, buffering and transitioning and protecting single-family neighborhoods, you want to look at, are uses compatible? And the southern part of this property is a residential use. That's the townhomes and the studio units. That backs up to a single-family residential use. We would consider residential uses compatible. Now, it is a different type because it's an attached product versus a single-family home, but those uses are considered compatible. The applicant has proposed an 8-foot setback. That is the same setback we have in all of our residential zones, with the exception of those agriculture zones. And then the setback in the R16 zone is 5 feet. So that 8-foot setback is within reason, and it would actually be the same requirement that would be there if this was zoned residential town site, or if it was zoned R18 or even R114. So they're also proposing to put a 6-foot vinyl fence up in between the properties to give a little bit of privacy. The heights that are proposed on those buildings, single-family residential zones can have homes up to 30 feet tall, and so the townhomes were proposed to be, I think, 32 feet, just short of 33 feet. So it is a little bit taller than those single-family homes, but it is, I think, interesting to look at if this were to be zoned single-family, the building could be placed exactly where this proposal is asking to have the townhomes and the studio units placed. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was just the parking. Yeah, so the parking meets our code requirements, and in addition to that, I think the shared use, the time of day use, if there are any visitors that are going to be coming in the evenings, the office generally would have open parking. And so the parking does meet code, but I think that even with that ability to have some of that shared parking on the evenings and weekends, they're in pretty good shape with the parking. So I will turn the time back over to the council and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Before we do that, we will turn the time over to public comment. Yes. So I will invite the following people to come up. Again, you'll have 3 minutes. You'll be uninterrupted. And you can present information to us, and there will be a timer. So Heath Montgomery, if you'll come first, and then we have someone who crossed his name out, and then Jim Pearson. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heath Montgomery. I'm basically a lifelong Kaysville resident, and We really love Kaysville in Old Town. It means the world to us, and we feel like we've been just shoved into a corner with a lot of this, and we don't feel like this development really matches with the theme of what Old Kaysville is, and it sounds like that was part of the general plan, is to try to protect the nature of our community. It feels awfully dense. It feels like the property just south of this proposed housing, it already feels like that property has really been ruined by the Mr. Car Wash light and noise directly on their property, and this building seems like it'll put that house in a perpetual shadow. My concern for the future of Kaysville, and let's just say this general neighborhood, is kind of in a theory of death by 1,000 cuts. You know, each individual little thing may not appear at the time to affect it, but when it's all put together, does this individual who owns this property next door feel like there's any quality of life in keeping a house there? Or do they want to be the next one to fall to a mixed-use development? And does the person next to them, you got to realize that most of the people that live right around this sit on a half-acre plus. The whole fabric of this thing could fall within 10 years because there's no quality of keeping these things intact. These are historic homes that my parents personally have spent the better part of 50 years really preserving what this part of town has, and that's the tie to pioneer era. That's the tie to who we once came from, what built us. It's a really special place, and if you don't really know or are familiar with this neighborhood, I understand how it doesn't really come across as it's special, but it's worth preserving. It's worth taking a very considered look at this. It's a valuable place. It would be nice to see them do something that reflects the character of the neighborhood. Again, it just really feels awfully dense, and I understand the developer wants, you know, the biggest bang for their buck, but I think we need to be involved in what that means. And I just think that people in that neighborhood are a pretty quiet, reserved folk that aren't going to come out and scream about something, but I think if they were all to be polled on it, I think they would also want something that reflects the nature of what we've had and what we should keep. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
First off, my name is Jim Pearson. I live right across from Mr. Car Wash there, and right across from where new development is being proposed. I have several concerns about it. One of them is that the area that we're proposing to put the buildings is much smaller than 0.71 acres that is going to be mostly commercial. I think the property where they're putting the dwellings is only like a quarter of an acre, where they want to stick 6 different individual residences. I don't think that goes to our code around here. That's a quarter of an acre where they put 6 people to live. Does that qualify in our code to allow that, especially in an area where we're an historic neighborhood? And the density seems a little high. You know, maybe they should be a little concerned about how many people they can fit into a quarter acre. The other issue is according to the plan, they're putting these buildings right up on the sidewalk. The housing in that area has a setback. I think it would be nice if they decided that, you know what, in order to keep with the way the neighborhood is designed, have these buildings set back as well, so that they're not, you know, there's not that big, okay, the buildings are set back and all of a sudden you have all these new dwellings that are right up to the sidewalk. Seems like that would help the neighborhood adjust to the impact. Another issue is that I couldn't get anybody to say for sure where they would put these drains in, but They said they would make sure that all of the water that drains off of their development would go into a storm sewer. I would encourage the council to at least mandate that they install the sewers right at the end of their property so that any water that comes off that property south onto Second North or Second West would drain into the storm sewer. Right now, they got a storm sewer that drains into a irrigation ditch. They said they weren't going to allow that water to go into that ditch, but I would like to hear some kind of, somebody say something in writing to them that says, no, that storm drain has to start at the end of your property and drain out to a storm sewer. That would help our situation over there too, because right now, there's nothing that says they're going to do it. I still have 30 seconds. Yeah, and I am against this rezone. I think they should consider the fact that this is an historic neighborhood and the general plan for Kaysville, #1 bullet says, we will protect the historic neighborhoods. You're doing the absolute opposite, putting these high-density buildings right on our street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. All right, council, should we invite the applicant up? Are you ready to question? Okay, is the applicant here? Please come on down.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Gonzalo Calquin with Envision Design Studio. I'm the architect on the project.
All right, I think we have some questions, but go ahead and present if you have some.
Yeah, again, just thank you to Melinda for her presentation of the project, and obviously the Planning Commission prior to this, and the council members for your participation, and the residents, really. I mean, we're in the neighborhood. We want to, bring a project that everyone likes, and we feel that it does accomplish a less intense use than would otherwise be allowed with the GC zone. And that's really kind of the main point that we like to focus on is the property is currently zoned as a GC. It could take a much more intense use that would increase traffic and all these things that are being brought up. And we are proposing a development that's actually very, it's actually the most low density project I've been involved in the last 8 years of doing this. So just to emphasize that, it's the 3 townhomes and the 3 little studios above the garages really buffer the commercial use from the existing neighborhood. And that's really, in my opinion, a very strong positive for this development. As it was mentioned in the Planning Commission meeting, and to Jim's comment, the storm sewer, all that is obviously handled through the engineering process, through building permit, and that's all taken care of. We have to, retain all the water on site and then slowly let it drain into the storm system. So that will all be handled by our engineers and reviewed by city engineers. So we don't have a concern there. But yeah, we're very excited for this project, and we feel that it accomplishes all the goals listed by Melinda for the city and the plan, the future plan, and yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, I have 2, and I'm sure everyone else has some. So my first question is, will these be owner-occupied properties?
Yes.
All of them, even including the apartments, or?
Well, it's 3 townhomes and 3 small units above the garages, and yes, the plan is that those will be individually condominiumized and privately owned. And actually, our owners are planning to own those and
Privately, not corporately? So
Correct.
for sale to purchase?
Yes.
Okay, even the studio apartments?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually the reason for, Kaysville doesn't allow accessory dwelling units, so they would have to be. We wouldn't be able to put a unit there if unless it's a for sale product.
You might mistake, her question is owner occupied, so you wouldn't buy it. She's talking about, you're talking about the person who buys it is actually the person who lives in it.
We don't want, corporately rented, corporately owned and rented, that is not.
Yeah, no, I think the intent is for owner occupied. And in fact, the family, right now, I know personally of 1 or 2 of the units that are going to be personally owned and family members will live in those units. So yeah, the answer is yes.
So in saying that, would you be willing to put a deed restriction on the properties or some kind of development agreement clarification there that they would be not rented by corporation?
Yeah, I personally can't make that. I
Okay.
mean, it's obviously, that would be up to the owner to, if that is a strong point
Okay.
in the, but yeah, I'm probably not the person to answer that question.
Okay, and then just square footage. How big will these units be?
The townhomes are, they're actually quite large, 17 plus 1,800 square feet. I mean, it's 2 stories plus a basement, 3 bedrooms at least. No, sorry, 3 bedrooms, and a 2-car garage. And then the studios are pretty small, very almost like a
700, 750.
Yeah, really pet?
Yeah, they're like more like 400, 500 square foot. Yeah, they're very small. It's
Okay.
just a 1 room with a little kitchenette and a bedroom. Yeah.
Okay. All right, okay, council, I don't want to hog the questions.
No, and that was my concern. On the studio apartments, I'm not as hard over for those being owner occupied, just because they're only 400, 450 square feet. It might be difficult finding people who will be willing to put out whatever they would cost to own them. But I am on the townhomes. That's what we're looking for, is people who want to be here in Kaysville, want to come in, own property, and there's an opportunity for you. I like the idea of the buffer. I agree with you on the buffer between the commercial and 200 as you're gradually going into the neighborhood. I personally, the renderings I saw of the studio apartments I thought were not very attractive. I thought the townhomes are fairly attractive, from what, and these are just architectural, renderings, so I got it. And I wrote down some questions and now I can't see them because I don't have my glasses with me.
I understand.
Yeah, it's the joy of getting old. And my one question then, and probably not for you, it'd probably be for Kaysville, for the city, is when we think of mixed use, we're commercial, residential, a lot of times we're thinking of the commercial on the bottom, residential upstairs. Will this, well, I guess since it's coming from the city, it meets that, but are there concerns with that? Is my question clear?
Uh-huh,
I had the same thought.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Sometimes we get pitched with these great opportunities, projects, and then the commercial comes and the residential comes and no commercial comes, and so.
Yeah, I mean, in our development agreement, which is part of the process for the rezone, we have to pull permits for both buildings at the same time. Yeah, there's no, I guess that's not an option for us to build the townhomes we can't build the residential until.
Yeah, as I read the development agreement, it said you had to take the permit for the commercial out before you could take the residential.
Yeah, I think it says
Right.
simultaneously, or you have to take the office.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, personally, I guess we're anxious to get the office building going probably quicker than anything. And I mean, they'll obviously be done at the same time and start construction at the same time. But the plan is to, the owner wants his business in the office building, and that's really the main driving point of this development is that commercial use, so.
What type of commercial users do you think you'll end up with? I'm sure you don't know exactly, but.
Now, we have a financial institution that will take one of the suites in there. I mean, it's 10,000 square feet of office space, so I'm not 100% sure on the total square footage of that, but, and then I don't know details on potential leases, but it's not a very large footprint of a commercial. I don't know what type of uses it could satisfy, but I know that professional office is a likely candidate, or so.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Adams?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a question for you, but you may want to stay seated there because somebody else might, but, huh? You don't?
I do.
Oh, you do? Well, then you go.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilmember Hunt?
So you don't have to stand.
I guess I just have a few questions, kind of like Councilmember Oaks brought up. I think the initial intent with mixed use was, you know, business on the bottom, residential on top. Barring that, where it's this sort of a situation, I think the hope is still that it would bring more of an attractive look, kind of like our main street here, where it's a little closer to the street. So I guess my question is, like, is there any chance of orienting it so the parking's off of 200 North? So the business is up there, so the parking's all behind, so that's kind of a more attractive
Yeah.
business type
Yeah,
front.
that's a good question. When we first started looking at this project, the orientation of the building, you know, we played around a lot with that. The biggest driving factor here is just the dimensions of the lot. I mean, it's a skinny, long lot that really doesn't provide, and then at the end of the day, parking just drives, well, you know, how many, the requirement of stalls for the commercial use that drives, you know, what you can put on that site. A horizontal building just became really small and didn't really yield much of a usable space. And the parking, as you can see in the site plan, there's a long row of parking that I think the other reason too, it pulls parking away from the residences, and it keeps them in front of the office building, which I think is ideal. So that, I guess that answers, or I hope it answers your question, is it's really just more of a site constraint.
And then I guess my other concern, and then I have other questions for staff, but I can ask those later, was just as far as the aesthetics, I just don't really feel like, it's pretty modern looking, and I don't really feel like it fits with our downtown. Do you guys have any other ideas on that, or?
Yeah, specifically on the office building, or
I mean,
the.
I'm okay with the townhomes. I mean, they could fit a little better with the neighborhoods, but they're not terrible. But as far as the office building goes, I think it's a big stretch for what we've got going on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the architecture of the office building for sure is very contemporary, very, I mean, I would call it a very nice look for, you know, a professional office building, you know, very nice materials, a lot of glass, which is typically what you want in a, on a busy corridor, a lot of visibility in and out from the space as a commercial use. That's very desirable. High quality materials. Definitely will comply and probably exceed all the requirements of design standards in the code. So yeah, I mean, as far as the aesthetics and whether it's a contemporary or I don't know that there's a specific architectural style that we need to be designing to. Obviously, we're, you know, meeting the desires and the needs in line with city standards and what the owner and ultimately the user of the space wants for their business. And then, yeah, for the townhomes, obviously the townhomes are, but I don't think you'll see a lot of townhomes being proposed like this. It's a pretty kind of a brownstone look, you know, a more expensive, definitely a more expensive construction. And I think that definitely puts an effort into creating that buffer and that transition. And I mean, most townhomes you see nowadays, even not far north of 200, just behind the Vasa Fitness there's some apartments or townhomes, I'm not sure what those are, but I would say we're a few steps above that on the architectural look to you know, ease the look coming into the historic neighborhood. And then I guess to your comment, or I can't remember who made the comment about the aesthetics of the
Studio.
Yeah. So, I mean, that building's obviously off the street on all directions. It's kind of it's really a garage with a little unit above. The intent was to keep the costs down as much as possible while matching some elements to and again, the design of that is not finalized, so we'll take that comment and try to improve the look of that and yeah, make it connect a little closer. So.
It looks like this has a fence around it. Is that part of your plan? Just to
Yes.
Clarify?
Yes. The intent is to put a fence around probably the south and east, between the car wash and the property.
The car wash
I don't
and
know
the
that the car wash fence would be required. I think it would probably be more of just so you're not seeing the cars going into the car wash all day from our development. But we'll definitely provide a solid fence on the south property.
Between the single-family homes and the development?
To the east, yeah.
To the east.
Well, according to the development agreement, it says that you will do it.
Yeah, that's what I
Yes,
thought. I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm not sure it's a requirement to put the fence between the two commercial properties. But we are
It is if it's in the development
Yeah.
agreement.
Right,
Right, I just wanted for clarification. Someone brought that up, and so,
yeah, there will be a fence.
okay. All right.
I have a
Oh,
follow-up.
Councilmember Jackson. I'm sorry, Abby, we're good, okay, you're done? Okay.
Oh, just a follow-up to what Councilmember Hunt mentioned. And Melinda, can you go to the pictures of the townhomes and the studio? So I think it's extremely important to protect our historic neighborhood. And that's why I decided to move to Kaysville several years ago, because I love that historic neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. And I love the design of the townhomes. I think it's beautiful, and I'm glad that you incorporated kind of more of a traditional historic look to that. I don't have too much of a problem with the commercial space. I do think it looks quite attractive, and I appreciate the buffer, because when this first came to us, I was very concerned about the transition from 200 to the homes and the residences there. And so I do think it's a good buffer. Now, with the studio apartments or studio homes, I am a little bit concerned about the design. Thanks for turning the volume up. I am concerned about the box design, and I know it's kind of set back in, and it's above the garages, correct? I think there was a point made, I don't know if it was Aaron that mentioned this or Jim, but death by 1,000 cuts, and I would like to see the townhomes or the studios match the townhomes in front as much as possible. I know you're trying to save costs, but to me, I just don't think that design works when you have homes next door that are historic. And, you know, we could approve this, but then, yeah, the next development that comes along too, it could slowly turn into a neighborhood that just doesn't work with our long-term plan and goals. And so I would like to see that change the design renderings here. And I think that would be my biggest hiccup as far as supporting this. So that's pretty much it. So do you want to speak to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we would have any objections to that. I don't know if that would be something that would, hold this from being potentially having a motion today, or, we could definitely, I guess that could be something that just is handled through the site plan approval process. And yeah, these are by no means final designs on these studio units. I mean, it's kind of the first concept elevation for these, so absolutely.
Actually, a follow-up to that, I meant to ask this earlier. Remind me the height of the studio apartments. 20. Now, 400 square feet, I believe I lived in a 400 square foot studio in my early 20s. That was pretty small, but it was great for me. Why not build up a little bit more on those? Get more in
Are you saying
rent?
just more, bigger?
Yeah, a little
ceiling
more
height, or-
square footage. If you could put another floor, I'm just
Yeah,
curious
we
why you
obviously
want to.
can't put another floor. I mean, we're limited to if we go another level, we'd exceed the height, which is 35. So yeah, that's really it. I mean,
You would exceed the height of the condominiums across? Because they're,
You're saying
or the townhomes, yeah, because they're 33 feet.
And Melinda, maybe a quick clarification.
Okay.
It's because
Is
we don't
height
allow
in Kaysville
ADUs.
measured to the ridge of a pitch roof or to the middle of a pitch roof?
To the corner.
To the
I'd
midpoint?
actually to the middle.
Middle. If you go by the building code, it's the average height in the
Yeah,
middle.
so
Right.
the townhomes across are actually, the height is significantly lower than what's listed. We're measuring to the ridge.
I would invite your conversations, if in the audience, to maybe do it in the lobby. Thank you.
Sorry,
So-
could you start over with that?
Yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, the height of the townhomes is somewhere in the 20, I can't remember the exact number. I mean, it's a two-story, roughly 10, 12 feet. So it's probably in the 20, 24 foot height, right, to the ridge of the parapet. The townhome, the top of the pitch roof is obviously significantly higher than that. but that's a pitched roof. I mean, the face
Yeah.
of the building is actually probably the exact same height.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very, the front face is actually pretty consistent with the height. It would definitely not, there's just no way to do 3 stories over, and still accomplish the, and really, I think that would create more of a less desirable product for the neighbors. I mean, we're going from 25 feet to 35 feet in a flat parapet. I don't think anyone wants to see a 30-foot wall, flat wall. So it definitely just creates a much more intense, again, these are probably intended to just be, you know, maybe they are the smallest units that will be available in Kaysville for, you know, a young, small family that's just starting out for a few months or before they get settled. So it just provides that variety. I mean, we understand it's not a place for a full-size family, but I think it'll provide a few units for those that, you know, might be in that stage of life. So,
And just, you know, I think it's great to have some units like this that are much smaller square footage. We have a lot of students that live here, and a lot of folks just don't need a lot of room. So I love the fact that I think that's a plus for this whole design. But because it is on the buffer and it does line up with the neighborhood, I would prefer to see the architectural design match more of the front of the, townhomes.
All right, great comments. Yes, Councilmember
I just
Blackwell.
have some questions for you. So obviously, to me, one of the buffers is height, and it's closer. And the closer you get to something, the higher it seems like. I don't worry about the studio ones. It's just a 2-story building. That doesn't seem like much, you know, and your height's there. But I'm wondering if you guys had even toyed with maybe doing a hip on the south side that was adjacent, because I know, you know, when people are standing there looking at a big wall, if you put a hip roof on it, it tends to make the building look a lot shorter than taller, and you could almost, looking at your design, you could almost put a hip roof and turn one of the dormers on that side, and it would give more of a historic look to that south side and not be so offensive. I mean, I think that's something that you should look at. But there is something in the development agreement that I want changed, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time because I need to talk to him. On page 360 of our 450, 60-page thing, but it's on the development agreement where it talks about subdivision for mixed-use overlay. It says right in there, it says the development of the project may require, I want that to say shall require, a subdivision of the property for the purpose of individually owned townhomes and studio units. I want those. I mean, I can't force somebody who builds this to sell those, I mean, to not own them and keep them probably. That's why I don't know about the deed restriction. I hadn't even thought about that. But what I can do is make sure that the plat is recorded such that they can be individually sold. And that's how our ordinance says. Even if you look at the definition of a dwelling, a townhome in our ordinance says they will be on separately owned parcels. So I want to make sure that's, because we say, you know, 90% of Kaysville is owner occupied. Well, I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of that. I think that's an awesome thing.
Right.
And I agree we need some more diverse housing. And I think as far as a buffer goes, this was general commercial. It could have been commercial buildings right up there, 35 feet tall, right to the back south wall, you know, within so close. I think having this residential buffer between the commercial and the residential, and then residential. I mean, it's residential against residential. I think you've actually made a better buffer than what I had pictured with commercial buildings being so tall with units above. So I've been okay with that, but I think there is a way to soften up maybe that south wall by maybe going to a hip type roof instead of a gable roof there, because they don't look so tall. And you could still do the architectural design that you're showing, and like I said, it seems like you could almost turn one of those dormers to that south side, and it would make it look shorter. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't be so offensive. But my big thing is the development agreement needs to say that they can be owner occupied, and the plat should be such that that's how it's done. Because right now it says the development of the project may require a subdivision of property. I want it to say shall require the subdivision. Now, like I said, people build stuff. I can't keep them from keeping it. I don't think I can.
You don't want to.
And I don't want to, but I want it to be able to be sold to individuals because we do not have enough owner-occupied availability of this type of housing. As far as the buffer goes, I think this is better than what I had pictured, from the general commercial to then go to the mixed use, because I was picturing those 2- and 3-story buildings up in Bountiful where they have commercial on the bottom and 2 stories of residential going right up against. Well, this seems to me, and the one thing you have addressed is nobody's going to like cars driving into their garage with their lights shining in the neighborhood, but you're saying you're going to put a solid fence in. So that should take care of that problem, because that's been some of the complaints we've had in the past. So I think there's a lot of good things about it, but for me, the big thing is making sure it is able to be owner-occupied.
Yes.
Can I ask a question to Councilmember Blackham?
Sure, sure.
Councilmember Blackham, when you say that shall, are you intending for the studios to be
Absolutely.
owner-occupied?
They can be
'Cause shall-
sold. They can be sold as owner-occupied. They will be designed, the plat will say that they are owner-occupiable. Now, that doesn't mean the people who build it, I can't force them to sell those 3 units, but
They can rent those out.
I don't know how you would stop. You know, you could build a subdivision of 10 homes of single families and one person could buy all 10
Well,
lots and
Nick, can you speak to that?
speak to that, Nick. I don't know.
Yeah, Councilmember Blackham's right. Putting a deed restriction on the plat is problematic for legal reasons. I think might potentially violate the Federal Fair Housing Act. But Councilmember Blackham, if the developer is amenable to that amendment right now, Councilmember Blackham's suggestion isn't out of line to require that those be individually platted. He's right. Anybody could purchase those. You know, in theory, the developer would never have to even sell those. He could keep all these properties and turn them into long-term rentals. But I think we could fairly, if the developer was in agreement with it right now, we could make that amendment.
Because if it was such that these were apartments and not owner-occupiable, sellable to owner-occupied, I would not be in for this. Because
Well, I will just mention that on the state level, I mean, most of us have heard about Governor Cox's suggested budget, and his goal for 35,000 owner-occupied homes to be coming. I know that there are conversations at the state level about deed restrictions, development restrictions, allowing cities to have more ability to control, that corporations don't buy all these properties and just rent them out. So just so you hear our intention, what we would like to see, I think I speak for everybody, is we would like to see owner-occupied units built in Kaysville. And so if you're amenable to that shall instead of may, that would be great. Councilmember Adams, you have not had an opportunity.
I know, it's rare for me not to be speaking.
I'm sorry.
We've loved it.
Are you amenable to that? I'm sorry.
I don't think, in my non-legal expertise, I don't think that changing that from may to shall, I think that, like Councilmember Blackham said, all that does is it requires us to subdivide it so that they
To
can be
plat it.
sold.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem for us.
Okay.
I got a thumbs up, so.
I think, one of the most discouraging things, I was talking to Mr. Montgomery, excellent painter, by the way, can just, you like your dad too, you can do that, make a line so perfect, Chuck. But I was telling him it's frustrating because for the miser, we don't have any control over what someone does with general commercial as long as they meet it doesn't even come to us. And so in this case, I guess I know what I would love to be there is like a cute little single family home, but it's not really our decision because it's zone general commercial. And so, like what Mike was saying, I feel like the idea that this is being proposed where there's going to be some residential back there is better than us just saying, okay, no, and then just throwing the dice. I mean, we would have no control. We have at least in this, we have a development agreement, right, that we could modify and change, and that's within our realm to do so. My recommendation was, it seems like there's been a lot of legislation on the fly, like, hey, I'd like the pitch to be this way, and I'd like this to be this, and, you know, I'd kind of like I mean, good recommendations, I'm not putting them down, but I feel like I would be hesitant to even make this a motion right now. I feel like this is something that I would feel comfortable making a motion that we table and give, you know, fortunately, these are recorded, so you guys could go back and like listen to all of these comments and maybe have an opportunity to bring it back with those possible changes. And maybe you don't change anything and that's what you put, but I feel like there's been a lot of suggestions that I think it's unfair to expect, you're the contract or the architect, to expect the architect to make all of these changes on the fly and expect them to have to live up to what we've just said.
Okay, so are you done?
So that would, yeah, I mean, I would be ready to make a motion that we table it for 2 weeks, or however long you feel like it needs to take to kind of put the council's recommendations to effect.
Just to provide a little bit of history for people that maybe haven't been watching all of our meetings for the last couple of years. This property, was it 2 years ago, came
2 years
before
ago
us
came with the idea.
with some pretty high density. And we had, the developer had some neighborhood meetings, found out, oh, maybe the community doesn't want such high density. So then they said, okay, fine, we're gonna sell some of the property. And it was general commercial. And so now we have a great business. We appreciate the fact that Mr. Car Wash is here, but that also brings its own set of problems and issues. And so I guess my point would be that I understand we don't want to legislate on the fly. I also understand that this project has been in the works for a couple of years, and we were trying to respond to the neighborhood, the fact that it is historic. We wanted to be able to preserve that. But once the developer comes and says, okay, fine, I'll just put commercial, we can't control, like Councilmember Adams said, we can't control what type of commercial necessarily goes there. And so we didn't have the ability to really have deep conversations about, okay, well, how bright will the lights be and what will the hours be for the lights and those types of things. And so I guess in this situation, and you did get a thumbs up with the conversations from the Wilds I think that we've had, I think it would be, this is our opportunity to be able to put some restrictions around what happens. Because not that they would do this, but it could go back and it could just become another, it could be a Chick-fil-A, or, you know, which we love Chick-fil-A. But I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It brings all kinds of other potential problems. I think at one point it was going to be a Starbucks and people were super excited. But then the things come and go. So I mean, just to that point, the property has had a history of some development, some suggestions, some ideas. It's gone back to the drawing board, it's come back. And we have a commercial entity, which we're happy with because it's great, but it does come with problems. So just as a council, maybe consider that as you're making your decision. I don't get to vote, so.
So
Absolutely.
And this is more for Councilmember Adams. John, I guess I'm almost ready to make a motion to approve it, because I think what we've talked about, the may to a shall, you know, the potentially changing a dormer, we're saying, hey, this is a good idea, but they wouldn't have to do it. I don't see us requiring it. And even the studios, which I don't like the look, if they're saying we're willing to, this is just a first rendering of that, we'll look at that and take your suggestions. I guess I don't understand why.
Well, but the problem is you could, like, I mean, no offense to you, but you could get a lot of, oh yeah, we'll do that. But this is the moment where we can actually put that into the development agreement. We can actually bind them to that. If we approve it, then that roof may stay the exact same. There may not be the pit. All of the things that you were asking for aren't in the development agreement currently.
But can't we make a motion to include those things?
Well, I guess maybe we could, but it seems like there's been a lot of, like, it'd be nice if you did this, it'd be nice if you did that. Like, are we wanting those to just be recommendations, or are we wanting them to be cemented in? That would be my question with because right now they're just like, it'd be really nice if you had the lights that are in the parking at a dimmer setting so that they're not causing, you know, a lot of this, but we have no control over it. That's my point, Perry, is it just seems like there's been a lot of recommendations. But you guys have been the ones making them, so if you're fine if they don't do them, then it'd be.
I mean, I don't see that there's been that much change. I mean, my thing was just a suggestion to try to make it look like it wasn't quite as tall, but they've actually added the architectural features and it's brought it back. So, I mean, it's not as bad. And like you say, it's not 33 feet tall. That's 33 feet to the peak. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of around 27
26,
feet,
yeah.
28 feet tall, really, based on our ordinance. So I don't see that.
So you're not as concerned if they don't make that change?
If they
You're just
don't,
trying to say.
I'm just saying you could help eliminate some of that concern people have of having that big tall right up front. And I think it's pretty easy to order a set of hip trusses instead of gable trusses when you put a package together in your trusses. So it's just a suggestion. I mean, I think, I don't know how much they're willing to look at that.
But I don't know if I'd want to legislate it in.
Yeah, I just don't. That's where I get really nervous about legislating architecture.
My favorite city in the country, favorite part is Old Town Alexandria.
Same, love it.
And I spend, and so I see what you have in the brownstone look, and that's what it reminds me of when I'm driving through, not when I'm driving through that. That's more brick and it's older, but I very much like the look. And I think that adds to the city. I mean, it's new, it's not 100 years old or 60 years, like some of the homes in the area might be, but it reminds me of one of my favorite parts in the country, so.
Go ahead if you'll take the mic,
Yeah.
if you would like to comment.
Yeah, just speaking of, in
My
the mic.
name's Ryan Wild, and I am one of the owners of the property, one of the developers, and I agree with everything that you guys are saying, that it should be individually platted and owned, and that is what it's supposed to be. And I also agree with Mr. Oakes that this is the first time actually that I've seen the back of the back units that look like they're just a box. And we were actually trying to make them smaller because we thought people would be bothered if they were. I would prefer to make them look better as well. I agree with you, and make them larger. If you could make it work back there. I honestly thought if we made them higher, that the people that they backed up to would come in and complain. So we were trying to do that to acquiesce to the neighborhood. And I agree that the lights from, my wife and I drove by the other night, and I drove down in front of the Montgomerys who I've known for 20 plus years, and I said, those lights are bright, and that bugged me at night. So I agree, and we were going to talk to them about the lights, but we would definitely agree right now to make the units have a better looking facade on the front and bigger. If you could make it work back there, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah.
So.
What about the shell? Oh, you already agreed to that, right? In the development agreement? Okay, got that. All right.
Yeah,
Okay. Ask. Nick, Councilmember Jackson has a question for you.
Yeah, so what would be the best way for us to move forward to kind of lock that in?
Well, I think if you wanted to make a motion that the studio units could be expanded in height and in size while still matching, obviously, the code, I think, I feel comfortable, and I don't want to speak for Ms. Greenwood, but I feel comfortable with the record that we have here from the applicant and a motion that staff could accommodate that.
So just a point of clarification, I'm a little confused because I don't really want the studios to go higher because they're already two-story, which is all the two townhomes are is two-story. The only difference is the studios have a flat roof and the
Ryan, could you go to the mic, Ryan?
I think that'd be okay.
People who are watching
I'm
online
not saying
want to be able
let's-
to.
With that.
Yeah,
You're suggesting that we would do it subject to staff approval of the planning and agreement. And to Mr. Blackham's point, if it just said it's not another floor, it's just a pitch, maybe there's inside, there's a vaulted ceiling, but that'd be great.
I don't really want to see you go up.
one go to the story and then a pitch.
That doesn't help the neighbors. That just makes it look taller. And that's what I'm trying to help right now is to take that.
Let's add a pitch and go over it.
And that's a fine, if you want to make that motion, that would be totally fine as well.
Okay.
I'm just gonna quickly make a comment on the size of the town, the garages and the units above. Obviously, the site, has been, to what's being put in, on the site has been maximized. We have parking requirements. We have a lot of things that get usually missed at this stage. We've provided space for a dumpster enclosure, a transformer. Those things usually get missed, and then you end up losing stalls. And so we've already accounted for all those things that are gonna be there. I personally think it's gonna be a challenge to increase the size, and I like Councilmember Buckham saying, I don't know that those units really need to increase in size, and we're happy to. Obviously, a bigger unit for a developer is better, but I don't know how you, I guess, add that to a motion as a condition or.
Well, it's already pretty clear in the development agreement. It says if it changes in size, then, then it's got to come back here.
All right.
Okay.
And it looks like, I apologize for interrupting here, but it looks like Ms. Greenwood's brought up what's currently in the development agreement. And so what they've presented, I mean, if they wanted to pitch that roof, I think what they have here would.
Is sufficient.
That, yeah.
Okay, council, are we, oh, go ahead, Councilmember Jackson.
Well, follow up. So sufficient meaning we would not need to make
Yeah,
a
I don't
motion?
think you would have to, I don't think you'd have to alter
It's
the
already in the
development agreement to allow for a pitched roof.
Okay, and I have no problem legislating aesthetics a little bit. So I wouldn't mind making a motion that it does, the design does change to a pitched roof to match the neighboring design. Not necessarily perfectly, but, so.
All right,
So
go ahead.
is the, I'm sorry, is the developer amenable to that? Is that enough? Yeah.
Yeah. And the only feedback I'll give on that is, obviously, we are close to the property line on the east side. The intent was to just manage water internally on the roof, on a flat roof. It's a lot easier to keep water away from the property line. When you have a pitch, you're not pushing water towards your neighbor's property. So just as a
But it's a car wash, so.
yeah, they need the extra water.
Yeah, well, that's right.
So again, that was just the reason for that. And again, it's further back. It's really not, there's, I don't know, 60, 70-foot trees in front that are they're gonna be pretty out of sight. So again, if the owners are okay with that, we have no concern with adding a pitch roof to those.
It's just east-west matching the ground, right, so the water would be.
The pitch would follow the length of the building. So it would be.
East-west.
The ridge would be north to south.
I mean, if you end
Oh,
up
north
doing
to
a gable roof, if you do a gable, a hip or roof, it will be all directions if you choose to do so.
All right. Thank you, council. Do we have a motion? Mike? or-
Yeah, I would make a move.
Oh, did you, Abby?
Oh,
Sorry, Councilmember Hunt, I didn't know.
No, you're good. I guess, I don't know, I had a few things that I had wanted to say, just not necessarily directed at you, but since you don't get to sit down anyways, I'll just keep talking at you. I guess I just wanted to kind of echo what everyone said as far as the ability to use this to buffer the existing neighborhood. I was on the planning commission when this was first brought up as a Starbucks. So it's a very, it's been interesting to see kind of all the evolutions and see where it's come and to see the one lot turn into a car wash, which, as the mayor said, we love businesses, but maybe was not what everyone would have hoped for. I feel like at this point, with this last 0.71 acres, this is our best chance to have an opportunity to have a say on what's going to go in there, like Councilmember Adams said. So yeah, and then just to reference the things that I had said before, I was just bringing up points of concern to see if anyone else was concerned, but if everyone else is fine with the way the commercial looks, I'm not gonna, it doesn't matter what I say if everyone else likes it, so. And then looking at the townhomes again, I think I'm been persuaded to Councilmember Oaks's point of view that they are, I had gotten a different picture in my mind when I thought of them, but seeing them again, I think yeah, they provide a good buffer between the commercial and the others. So I don't know, I guess it was kind of a statement, but just where I'm at on it, just before we vote.
Thank you for your thoughts and your opinions on that. We appreciate your insights. All right, Councilmember Oaks.
Yeah, no, hold on a sec. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone at 196 North, 200 West, and 166 North, 200 West from general commercial to include a mixed-use zone overlay.
Okay, we have a motion.
Oh.
The shall.
Yeah, I don't need those. Including, to include the discussion from may to shall, and I think it's the only,
Well, I think that.
that's in the agreement already, and they've agreed to it.
Okay, great.
Do you want that, Ms. Greenwood, if you call, do we put that, Ms. Greenwood, put that
Just-
expressly in
Oh,
there?
I would like it.
okay, yeah, from may to shall, and adding that the studio units will have a pitched roof. Sorry, thank you.
I'm not sure that's exactly where in the agreement it should be, but if not there, we will include it in the most appropriate place.
I
if
think
the
we're all in
motion passes.
agreement, and so, yeah, administratively.
I would second that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Comments, council? Okay.
Yeah, I'll make
Oh,
comment.
Councilmember Jackson.
I really like what you guys are doing. I just want to make that clear that this is fantastic, that you're working with us, working with the neighbors, and so I love that buffer, and so, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you. One final question. When do you anticipate building starting? I'm just curious,
We're
just as.
submitting plans tonight now. Yeah.
Maybe have a product in spring? Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see. All right, action item 6B, which is text amendments to ordinances within Title 17, 18, and 19 of the Kaysville City Code. I'll turn the time over to Josh. Mr. Belknap, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Greetings from Public Works. I hope it was a good Christmas and New Year. This was the first year in the last 8 years that we weren't out on Christmas or New Year's, and so that's been super exciting to us. So we've been like extra pumped. So I hope it was as good for you as it was for us. We've got before you, sorry, pulling up a couple things here. A couple of modifications to city code. Some of these are housekeeping items that over time we've found needs or opportunities to change things. But I'd say the majority of these changes in the staff report are in response to changes enacted by the state legislature. And these changes that the legislature largely deal with the subdivision plan review process. So that's construction plans as they come in. Exactly how is that review process done? How quickly is it done? It doesn't apply to things like a rezone type request. But the state has started to more and more limit cities' ability to request certain things in that development review process. Staff put together kind of a recommendation text, took that to Planning Commission. Of specific note, that recommendation included that the state does allow Planning Commission to be involved in the preliminary plat and the preliminary plat only. That is the only public meeting that the state would allow. Staff originally had that in the text. In Planning Commission, in reviewing that, made the recommendation to actually not have preliminary plat come to Planning Commission. I think some of their reasoning was kind of a general feeling that, you know, the state's turning this into a check the boxes. The city's requirements are this, And if they meet all those requirements, then there's nothing to legislate. So I think that was the basis of their feeling. We incorporated that recommendation from Planning Commission and changed the text. So currently that text shows that the subdivision construction plan reviews would not go to the Planning Commission, and the preliminary plat, final plat can't go. So we're here to get council's input on that, as well as answer any questions that council has on the other text items that were in the staff report. So with that, turn it over to you, council, for questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions? Councilmember Blackham.
I have a lot of questions.
You and me both.
Because, this is a very philosophical point for Kaysville City. Because there's two ways it's proposed. It's redlined two different ways. One of them is that it goes to the Planning Commission and there is one public meeting, and the Land Use Authority is the Planning Commission. The second one, which was changed after the Planning Commission meeting, took the Land Use Authority to be the city staff, and I think the intent was to eliminate the public hearing. Now, so I've gone through and I've read the legislation, and if you'll look on, boy, you're killing me with all these pages too, by the way. But page 383 of the actual bill, it's line 383. It says, this section applies to land use decisions arising from subdivision applications for single-family dwelling, two-family dwelling, or townhouses. My understanding, that's what the legislation is supposed to be legislating, is just those three items. The proposal, the ordinance, appears to include commercial also. If it's in a commercial zone, it's a commercial plat, it looks like that's the intent. That's not really what the bill was intended to be for one and two family dwellings and townhouses. That's how I read it. And if you read the bill, it's 1,000 lines, 1,100 lines, and it's going to be different sections of the same thing. It's the moderate income housing is part of it, the internal dwelling units, but it also talks about municipalities, and then it goes to counties. So it's the same repeated stuff in different portions of the bill. But the bottom line is that pretty much says that what this legislation was for one and two family dwelling subdivisions and townhouse subdivisions. But I'm kind of getting that our proposal for our ordinance is to include all if it's a permitted use. And then the philosophical part of this that's kind of got me, I understand it is definitely a permitted use and a preliminary plat, but it does kind of give people that opportunity to speak. Now, whether, and a lot of times we've heard the argument, there's nothing you can do about it. If it's a permitted use and that's what it is, that's the way it's going to be. But it's also an opportunity for somebody to feel like they may have been heard a little bit, and maybe feel like instead of just, because we have been ostracized and accused so much of not being transparent in what we do. And so, and if you go to the bill, if you go to lines 410 through 413 in the bill, it talks about, with respect to preliminary applications to subdivide land, the Administrative Land Authority may receive public comment and hold no more than one public hearing. So even the bill still says you can have a public hearing, as you stated, if you want to. It says may, it doesn't say shall. You can choose not to. And I get it. From a staff standpoint, working here, the less you dealt with, the easier it was to just get things done if they were permitted and get them done. I get that. But now that I'm sitting on the other side, I say, I understand where people maybe feel like they've been jaded a little, or they didn't, you always hear, I didn't know that was going there. I had no opportunity to talk about it. We heard it tonight a couple of times, So, and so is the Land Use Authority the staff only for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses? Or is it proposed that the land use authority for commercial plats is also? Because my understanding is, like I say, commercial plats will still go to the planning commission unless it's written differently in our ordinance. But right now, the way this is written, I'm kind of getting that it includes all plats if they are permitted uses.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the bill just applies to residential. I think you're correct. And the way we have it written, I don't think it distinguishes, so that can be an opportunity for modification to that, to distinguish, you know, this is the residential, this is the commercial. So, yeah, that's a fantastic
To your point, I have spoken to the bill sponsor and the writer of this, and it's specifically for housing. Yeah.
So, so I think maybe the ordinance may need to be written, you know, nobody likes big, long ordinances. It almost needs to be 2 ordinances. One for 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses, and the other one for commercial. But then again, it goes back to the philosophical discussion I want to have with this council. Do you want to take the public out of those permitted uses? I don't know.
Before we have that conversation, we do have someone signed up to speak, and I
Oh,
forgot
I'm
to
so
let
sorry.
them come sign up, or come speak, sorry.
Oh, I thought he was just part of it.
Yep, so come on
He can
down.
speak at any time. I don't want to hold him to 3 minutes.
Yeah, Steve Lyons. Yeah, come on down, I forgot to include you as part of your opportunity,
Yeah, it's
so.
always a pleasure to stand before this august body. You know, as the Planning Commission Chair, we did pass this with unanimous vote. And we felt that with the housing in particular, this was particularly a good idea. One of the things in hindsight, talking with Councilmember Blackham, we have done it with conditional use permit where we do notice, and then they're able to call staff. I think that may be a middle of the road, kind of a point where you do notice it, and then they're able to call the city and say, hey, we noticed that there's a sign out here, what is it? But we felt that, and I'll go back and I'll start with a poem, and it's Hamilton put it, I'm reading a book about my public administration days, but for forms of government let fools contest, that which is best administered is best. And I go back and say this, oftentimes we have the opportunity to administer things and change our code, and I think this is one of those times when we can actually kind of go back where the state wants us to go. And our government is designed to be inefficient. We all know that. I mean, we had Hamilton, we had Madison and Jefferson, who all had different points of view. And we were designed as an efficient government, so we had public oversight over what we do. Efficient government's dangerous. I mean, that's where we get into things we don't want. But I think we definitely have some good inefficiencies in oversight. I think there's those times where we can put in some oversight and do that and have some effectiveness. I like to use the word effectiveness in what we're doing. And the Planning Commission felt that also. But it also gets in with what the state wants. And I think the state is headed in that direction to try and get more housing into our communities. And that's where we're headed with the intent of this law and the intent of what we're trying to do. If it needs to be tweaked, please tweak it and take the commercial out. And then let's play where we need to play. But I think ultimately what we felt as a planning commission was to be more efficient at what we're doing so that we can administer and allow it. It's a checklist. I mean, if you look at it, I think it's 43 components in there. Engineering, stormwater. It's things that I, as a planning commission member, I don't really want to deal with. I don't want to have to look at a survey. I don't want to have to deal with the sewer district. I don't have to make sure all those boxes are checked when we're up here looking at a subdivision plat. That is something that's a very technical review that Public Works should be looking at, your city engineer should be looking at, your CPD department should be looking at. Really, those are technical components of a land use decision that really should be dealt with at a professional level, at the city level, and really need to be really honed in with a developer so that developers kept honest and true with what they're doing, so you don't have lines crossed and other things, and that they're assuring that water, power, sewer, and those things are there for use. We really felt as a planning commission also that, just like was said, when the citizens come here, they should be heard, but they should also feel like we're responsive to their needs. And I sometimes think with subdivision plats, we are not responsive to those needs. Conditional use permits, yes, we can impose conditions. On an administrative item, I can say, yes, we're going to say no more than 2 cars can come to the house in a 15-minute period. But this, we can impose no conditions. We can go no further than what is on the plat. And reviewing that plat, I don't know if engineering has done, they say they have, but I don't know if the engineering engineering's done. I don't know if they've talked to the sewer district. Those are things that need to happen at the staff level and be reviewed with the engineering team and the public works. We felt that that was where it needed to stay and where it needed to remain. I believe that we made the right decision, and I recommend that the council passes it, tweaks it also so that there is some public oversight. I do think that by putting a sign out and having the community know that, yes, there is a change coming, it is a subdivision, and being able to call staff and discuss it, just like we do with conditional use permits, is an effective way to keep that oversight there, and maybe is a good way of splitting the baby, so to speak.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I will just give you my opinion, not that anyone really cares, but it's a philosophical discussion. And I do understand from the staff perspective that it takes time to go through, answer questions, let people come in and talk. But I honestly, a great example tonight, we had residents come in, they don't like what we just voted to approve. However, they did have the opportunity to tell us they didn't like it. They had the opportunity to hopefully feel like at least we were listening and we asked some questions that they brought up. So I mean, I know this is more work on staff, but I do think that there's value in public comment and opportunities for people to be able to say what they feel and to share their feelings. But I understand it also delays things, and so then when people are mad because the process is so slow, there are delays, but I think government is intentionally designed to be slow, and I hate that, believe me. I work with the federal government every day and hate the fact that everything's so slow. So there's got to be, it's a philosophical question, and there's got to be a balance to it for sure. So, and I know where the state's coming from. I've had lots of conversations with them.
I think that was the basis of our original recommendation with the text was, well, let's still have that opportunity. And I personally think, if I have the opportunity to voice my opinion, even if it doesn't alter or change anything, I still am glad that I was able to bring that up. And
It does though, like it, I mean, it can,
Councilmember Adams.
oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, Josh, but it does, sometimes great ideas come from that maybe, like to your point, maybe you have no control on this side, but the public may say something and the person in the back that's the developer may think, you know what, that's a great idea. And then talk to them after the meeting and say, hey, we're going to do that. We're going to pitch that roof so it looks a little bit more like a home and not so much like a flat roof garage. And those things only happen through the dialogue, I think. I mean, and I know it doesn't happen every time, and maybe I feel for these guys because I felt that, like, we had a couple of meetings in the past where we weren't able to make a change. We weren't even able to, like, decide what we voted on, and I hated that. And so to have that happen on a consistent basis would suck. But they do need to be heard. I mean, we talked about, I remember when we were talking about this, we talked about maybe having a QR code on the signs as an option, the signs that say there's going to be a development, a QR code that people could scan, and it would just take them in so that they could put in their comment. And like, I think I don't know if you guys remember us like kind of musing with the idea of there being just a question in there. Would you like to have a chance to comment in public? And kind of making it so that if nobody logs in and nobody pushes that button, then we don't necessarily need to have a public comment forum. I don't know if that's the way we go, but I tend to feel like it's a good thing to have people have a chance to voice their opinions. So I know it sucks though.
It is, and it's frustrating, like for
we need to pay them
the gas
more.
station.
Is the
Well,
big
you know,
thing.
especially when people come with an expectation that we're actually going to do something to help them, because that's the expectation. And when there's nothing we can do except listen, that's really frustrating. And I totally understand where that comes from. So, I don't know, guys. Who else would like to have a
Mayor?
opportunity? Yes.
May I just add, there were, I think, a couple of additional reasons why the Planning Commission ended up coming to that conclusion. And those were, one, that a subdivision is a very technical application. And all of the comments that we, as the city, will give back to the applicant has to be referenced back to a code, a standard that the city council has adopted. And because of that technical nature of that, the ability for, or the likelihood of a citizen to come in, notice that we missed something and have the code citation or the standard cited so that we could add that into the comments is just very low. Secondly, there was a lot of concern about meeting that 15-day time period that the state has set forward for us. We have 4 times a year where we only have one planning commission meeting a month. That's April, that's July, November, and December. And there is really very low likelihood during those months, or if we didn't have a quorum, that we would make that 15-day time period. So it was also just the practicality of this is an administrative decision, it's checking boxes, but there were those other 2 factors that the Planning Commission discussed at length as well.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate it, because it's true. Councilmember, well,
I just, I get that, and I guess I'm kind of at the point, more than anything, I just want people the opportunity to be able to feel like they have been heard. Now, can that be done by still having the staff be the land use authority? Because I understand the 15 days. You got to have that first review out within 15 days. I mean, there's no exception to that. That's the rule. That's the law. And to throw, a public hearing for a planning commission that may not be meeting for 3 weeks, that makes it tough. So. And I'm trying to figure out a way to, like he says, and I'd thought about this too, the minute it comes in, the sign goes on the property, it has thing that says, if you have comments on this is a permitted use. If you do have comments on this, please submit them to the city so we can hear what you have. And I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah.
That's why I think the ordinance is long from being ready to be adopted at this point, but. I don't know. That's just another hypothetical.
Well, I like your idea of sorry. Did you have
Oh,
something
is
to
that
say
okay if I?
To hit what you just said?
Well, I just kind of have, as I've been thinking about it, I agree with everything that's been said about transparency, but I also feel the crunch of that 15-day thing. And so, and I kind of pitched the idea to Melinda, and I don't know, I kind of would, since we're having a philosophical discussion, wanted to know what everyone else thinks is, what if we, like you said, put a sign out and solicited public comment, because I think people are often more comfortable writing something down and being anonymous anyways, for better or worse. If we took that comment, but I think when people give those comments, there's no way to show, or they feel like there's no way to show that those were read and considered. And so maybe if it was possible to, outside of the 15-day window, if we made the administrative work done by staff, just say, these comments were made during a planning commission meeting, and have the planning commission make a presentation and say, this was done, these were the comments were made, and address them. Because a lot of times, like we've gone over, people say, well, there's traffic, and we say, here's the traffic study, and just go over it so that people know that we're accountable to what they're saying. I don't know if that's more work for staff or.
And I think one thing to keep in mind is the load on staff. It's obviously something that we're aware of, but I wouldn't say that that's a driving force behind, pushing for doing something or not doing something. There are communities who are taking an approach along the lines of, it's an administrative function, but we would like a report back to the legislative body, whether that's planning commission or city council. I think there's probably options there to just tell us, like, hey, maybe summarize the comments and summarize what came from that.
how about if staff could just publish on the website? Like, we could have an extra page on the website. We post all the public comments there. It is on us as elected people to read them. And then, and then it's public facing and people know, yeah, your comment made it to our email and our email then pushed it out and we have these comments and they're available for people to look at. Would that be easier than summarizing and writing staff reviews or no, not really?
I think my preference would be that we just take things to Planning Commission. I think some of the comments here, and I'm just having a hard time kind of conceptualizing them, but that may actually be more complicated than sticking something on an agenda and doing things the way that we have been doing them previously. We do get staff reports done. They're posted to our website generally a week, the Friday before the meeting on Planning Commission, so the Friday before the next Thursday. Sometimes it's not until Saturday or Monday, depending on what we have going on. But then the notion of, okay, we go and immediately go put a sign on the property when we receive an application. I think that's something that we could do, but I just think I would want a little bit more direction as to what I think that process would look like, and then even like the intention of that process, so that we could understand what the council would like us to do, and then kind of design the process and the ordinance around that expectation. But if it's we want to put this in front of the public and continue to do things the way we have done and receive, or at least have an opportunity for the public to comment, I think that we would just go the route of putting it on a Planning Commission agenda, and we as staff will make sure that those comments are submitted back to the applicant within the 15 days that's required. If the comments for the Planning Commission fall within that time frame, great. If they don't, then basically they just won't be considered, because unless the applicant wants to consider them, because that's always an option. They can say, yeah, we'll take that into consideration, or they can say, no, that wasn't within the 15 days. But I think that may be a better approach to try and satisfy what the council is trying to do.
Well, so with the planning committee, sorry, I'm just blah, blah, blah. Mike started it with like the free range, free thought, whatever hippie stuff he was saying. So if.
I want to open discussion.
Oh, open discussion.
Table it, then let's table it.
So I think we should table it, but I just wonder, I like this idea of Councilmembers Hunt of saying maybe, and I think maybe I'm too hip on these QR codes, but I think they're really slick. You push it and you could put in the comments, and then it wouldn't restrict the 15 days. And also it could say the meeting's going to be held on this day where we'll say your things, but it's not a public comment issue. I think that like if you were having to read that report or the summary from that, would that be less feeling like you can't change anything, or feeling like you're in charge of checking all those boxes? But at least those people, if they wanted to come to the meeting, they would hear their name or they would hear their comment, about traffic or this or that, and then also we've addressed it in this way. I don't know. Seems like a good idea.
I think, honestly, to Melinda and to your department, I know you guys are limited on what you're able to do based upon staffing and those types of things. And so I don't think the intention here is to say, oh yeah, you guys just need to do more work. I think it's just really to provide an opportunity for communication. Sure. So if there's a way for us to continue having this discussion, continue to work on it, I think that's a good option.
I wonder if it might be helpful to further detail the process as the state has laid it out, and then also have maybe a recommendation. One thing that we need to start doing is we need to start complying with these changes at the start of February. So what the state has laid out, what the legislature has so graciously given us, is a review cycle that starts with preliminary plat. That comes in, and there's a 15-day period, as Melinda had pointed out, that we have to do our internal review of the technical items. and get it onto a public meeting agenda if we so choose. That 15-day period allows us one opportunity to give input and add things that, hey, you missed this, you don't have this. If we miss that 15-day window, it automatically moves to the next step. And none of our potential comments would be incorporated.
Right.
That's not our last opportunity, but we only have 2 real opportunities to give input and say, hey, you missed this requirement, you missed that requirement. Kaysville says that this is the way that this thing has to be done, and you didn't incorporate that. Preliminary plat is our first opportunity. So while we don't want to have staff impact be the driving force behind everything, doing or not doing something, we do want to take that into mind. We don't want to lose that first opportunity if we don't have to. Second round that comes up is the applicant then comes in, submits an application for final plat, and that is a 4 review cycle process. First cycle of those 4 is our last opportunity to say, hey, we've got your plans, you missed, or this needs to be changed. That's a 20-day process. After that, they bring it back, and we can't add anything else, but we can say, oh, hey, you still didn't incorporate this one thing that we had told you previously.
So just a question, though.
Yeah.
Mayor, can I ask him a question?
You sure can.
Thank you. So let's say you do the first review, and your review is pretty in-depth, and they don't get the correct comments back to you. That doesn't automatically put them, they have to address your comments before they can move to the next round.
It's the city's needing to respond within the 15 days.
Yeah, the city has to respond within 15 days. And then if they don't respond within 20 days to yours, then the timeline starts over again. Is that correct?
I don't think it starts over again, but I think the timeline.
I guess it wouldn't.
Just continues to kind of drag out.
Drag out if they don't respond back to you.
But again, we've got to be able to demonstrate that specifically, that, hey, this specific code, this specific requirement, we can show you, document.
And it specifically says that you can't add anything to it unless it's like life safety or crazy sewer district or.
Our standards are even more important now than they ever have been.
I think it says that if they request a pre, then you have to provide them a copy of your standards, your ordinances, and at a pre, if they request one, and then once they do the preliminary, you've got 15 days.
So currently, the engineer has put together a checklist of, here is every single item, our valve fittings require epoxy covered bolts. We don't allow globe valves, we require butterfly valves, and it is a line-by-line requirement that we provide to the developer.
Okay.
So through that review process, after the first cycle of the 4 for final plat, we can't add anything else. We can just, in the remaining 3, continue to hammer home, hey, you forgot this, you forgot this, you forgot this.
You can't do that. You don't get to do that.
And each of those subsequent reviews is 20 business days. So perhaps in the interim, an individual I used to work with would frequently say to me, don't let perfection get in the way of progressing forward. And I wonder if maybe we potentially keep Planning Commission involved for the time being. And we move this ordinance forward, and in the meantime, we could receive direction that, hey, let's be working in the background with IT to set up something like a QR code, a comment bank. If we want to change this in 2 months and pivot from Planning Commission, hey, we've got all the background stuff laid down, and we feel like we can do that.
So
mean, I
Josh,
don't-
what you're saying is we have to have this in place by February 1st, or we have to have something adopted,
Yeah, we need
right?
we need to start
Okay.
abiding by
Okay.
the state requirements.
But then we
We don't have
can,
anything in place,
Right.
we'll just,
but we need to adopt something, and we can.
We don't actually have to adopt anything, do we? Because as long, I think it says right in our ordinances it says that if a state requirement supersedes our ordinance, the state
automatically
requirement will be followed. And I know we need to get an ordinance, but I don't want to rush it. But I like the idea. I'm not saying I don't like the idea of the administration being the land use. I just figure there's got to be some way, I think, and I like the idea of the sign going up and the public comment coming in. I just don't want to take the public comment right out of it because I feel like people want to be heard. Now, if that means leaving it the way it is, then you leave it the way it is and just make.
Nick, what do you suggest then, as far as what action we could take so that we are in compliance, and then?
And we do have, sorry, I'm jumping in here, but we are required to have it adopted by February 1st, or it does default back to state code. But we have our meeting 2 weeks from now, and then February 1st is another council meeting. So we do have 4 weeks in which we could finesse this and come up with something that the council would feel more comfortable with. Obviously, you have to feel comfortable with it to adopt it. So sorry, I just wanted to add that, and I'll turn that back over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Ms. Greenwood. I think it's always good if the city has an ordinance. The state code allows us for us to have our own nuance in this. One idea that some people have thought about is that the Administrative Land Use Authority, so that the public could comment, the city staff could have a weekly meeting where all the applications they receive public comment, but it's staff. So we've kind of thought of this from a typical paradigm of planning commission makes these decisions or city council makes these decisions, and the code allows for the Administrative Land Use Authority to be an individual. And our code could reflect that, and that individual could take public comment every week on all the applications through some kind of noticing process. But I agree.
Can you say QR code, please?
Yeah, QR code, yes, sir. Great, brilliant idea. Yeah, I think probably and I don't want to speak for Mr. Belknap or Ms. Greenwood, but what I'm hearing tonight, you've given staff a lot to think about and some different avenues to go down. So I think the direction I would propose is that we table this, come back in 2 weeks with maybe 2 or 3 options, different options, keeping the planning commission in, taking the planning commission out, explore some middle ground between those two. That way you have a couple of options and you can say, I like this, let's pursue this, and we can stop spending resources on the other 2 ideas.
Yeah, I like that.
Is it possible, and if not, I think that's perfectly fine, similar to like a consent agenda to table that administrative land use authority portion of the modification and adopt the other ordinances in Title 17, 18, 19.
That's an option the council could take as well.
Okay.
I'd be more comfortable just tabling it until we get an ordinance.
was there anything in 17?
There was just a couple of word changes in 17, 18 had some.
Yeah, 17 is mostly just housekeeping, like we had referenced Title 19, Section 5.3, and those sections are changing, so I'm just simplifying that to Title 19. But before we conclude the discussion, I do want to go back to what Councilmember Blackham was talking about earlier about separating the commercial from the residential subdivisions. I don't have any concerns about having the same process for both, but I don't know what the rest of the council feels about that. And generally speaking, the commercial subdivisions are a lot less complicated and more straightforward than your residential ones because they're adding in roads in the new subdivision. Generally speaking, the commercial ones are a lot more straightforward. But if we want to separate those out and have a separate process for both, then that's some direction I'd like to have from the council, because that's, I think, kind of a bigger task than just trying to figure out the process to involve the public.
I feel like that's more in line with the bill.
I was going to say the law February 1st, it's just residential, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
just-
the
just
commercial could be another discussion. So I'm saying you don't have to cram and do both, right?
Well,
For the
right
next
now,
2
the way our
weeks?
code is written is
Oh,
the
it's together.
subdivision process is the same, whether
Okay.
it's commercial or residential.
Okay.
So if we do separate that out, I think we would have to adopt something simultaneously, because if we're going to separate them out, I think we would have to have something for the commercial as well as the residential. I don't
Would
know
that
if
have to
Mr.
go back
Mills-
through planning commission?
No.
Okay.
I think you could do that fairly easily. You could just copy and paste what's existing and say, this applies to commercial, this applies to resident, and then write something and say this applies to residential. But Ms. Greenwood's right, you'd have to adopt the new ordinance.
Okay. We ready for a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we table item 6, which is now C, that was B, or is it still call it 6B? It's C now, right? Okay, make a motion that we table action items 6C.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments? No? Okay, Councilmember Adams.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
Councilmember
No,
Oaks.
I appreciate the work that's been done, Josh and staff, because, you read through that, there's a lot of red line, and I appreciate it and understand, as you're trying to, you work towards the code, what the state legislature has done to us or for us. And I think we'll get there. I do too. I think we'll get there, and I think it's been a good discussion.
And I like Nick's idea of maybe having staff be the board that you meet with once a week, and I think that Josh would be the appropriate person to do that, like most likely 4 hours a week.
Squad, is that?
And the QR code gives his address too.
Yes, the Josh code. Anyway,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, you're good.
I just had one question. So in terms of direction, is there anything in between this meeting and the following meeting that you would like staff to be specifically working on?
Maybe I can summarize what I thought the direction was, and then council can step in. So my understanding was we were going to separate the code, commercial code, residential. We're going to leave commercial as is for the time being. Then through the residential, we're going to come up with kind of 3 alternatives. Take planning commission entirely out, make it an entirely staff-driven thing with no public hearing. An alternative where we have some kind of administrative law, land use authority that is not the planning commission, that meets on a more ad hoc routine basis weekly, I guess, and then a third option that would leave planning commission in. Is that?
Yep.
I thought there was one other that I'm confused. I thought that we could leave the staff, city staff, as the administrative land authority, but have some sort of a public comment.
Yes, I apologize. That was my second
Okay.
alternative, yes.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll work on those items, and that's what we'll be bringing back next time.
Yeah, and Anne Marie will give us 500 pages to read.
Okay.
Don't do that again.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure, I apologize for jumping in there.
No, not at all.
All right. You voted, okay. Councilmember Hunt?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Mr. Belknap, for that.
Thank you.
You are the
Thanks,
best.
Josh.
Very much.
All right, you guys, it is almost, I will make this quick. So our work item discussion, just to kind of give you a summary of what's going on. I volunteered to be on a task force for the homeless shelter project for Davis County. The state is requiring Davis County to provide 2 things. Well, first of all, a temporary cold blue shelter. The cold blue period is from October to the end of April, and it's if temperatures get 15 degrees or colder. So then the state has mandated that temporary shelters cannot be removed You cannot evict people from them, but we, as a county, have to provide some kind of shelter. So there have been lots of discussions. So we talked about the billboard discussion, I think, a month ago, seeing if the property owner would perhaps sell at a discount or some kind of good price property to build a permanent shelter. And the cities along Davis County had to approve the billboard build out along their I-15, and all the cities said no to that, okay? So what's happened as a result is the county owns 3 senior centers, one in Bountiful, one in Layton, I believe, and one in Kaysville. There was an initial discussion of making that a temporary code blue shelter. So the county's saying, you know what, we need to provide a permanent solution. We want to have wraparound services, we want to provide a permanent solution. So we've been on a field trip, several field trips. First of all, the task force went to a school in Sunset. It's called, what's it called? Fremont Elementary School, thank you. And the school district voted to close it at the end of this next school year. It's a huge facility, so the county said, hey, maybe we can talk the state into buying the facility, make it a permanent shelter. Okay, that's one discussion. But in the meantime, they've identified as a potential shelter the emissions building in Kaysville. Now, the task force, I'm on it, several other mayors and the county commissioners, and lots of people are on the task force. So they're making this recommendation. So Jason and I went with the county before Christmas, I think, and we toured the emissions center. There are many reasons why I don't think that that's a good idea, and Jason doesn't either. The county is saying, well, look, it's a facility that we already own, and it's right by a bus station, so that makes so much sense to the county. And I'm not knocking the county, okay? And when I say the county, I say county/task force discussion, okay? So it's not just the county saying that this is a good idea.
It's Steve, right?
Yeah, no. So anyway, that's a discussion, so that's kind of on the table. Last night, I went on a bus tour with the task force, and we toured the Switch Point facility in Tooele. It was a school that was abandoned, and it was purchased, and now it is a permanent homeless shelter. It's actually really nice. It's really well maintained. It's brand new, too. It's only 3 weeks old, so brand new. It took them 3 years to be able to acquire it and to make it ready to actually have inhabitants. It has 66 permanent housing units on the facility. They're already full. Permanent means these are people with disabilities that make it impossible for them to really live independently. So it's long-term permanent housing for them. And then it was also a soup kitchen, and it has temporary housing opportunities, okay? So that's Switch Point. So the discussion here is, number one, we just want to make sure that everyone knows that these are things that are being discussed. As we've talked to the county, we've said, look, the emissions building is not really a good choice for a couple of reasons. First of all, as we're walking through, it was an emissions center. I mean, they could put some cots in there as a temporary shelter. The idea for the temporary cold blue shelter is that at 7 a.m. or after breakfast, well, there's no breakfast facility on site, but other temporary code blue shelters provide breakfast, and then they tell people that are there, see ya, you're out of the shelter. We lock the doors until 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whenever they decide you can come back. And so during the meantime, there aren't really options for people to go. Now, we're having this discussion just really to make sure that people understand that these conversations are being had. I have had the opportunity to talk to some leaders, our Senate and our House leadership, and said, look, if you're going to make Davis County do this, you've got to provide some funding for this. This is not something that we can foot the bill for as cities or as a county. They understand that that's going to be a requirement, so we are doing an ask. And so the county/task force is saying, hey, maybe we should provide this great big solution, and then they know we're ahead of it, and then they won't make us do a temporary code blue. Right now, where people are going is a Lantern House in Ogden, and it is full. And so as an option right now, they're providing hotel vouchers. I think that there are 5 or 6 hotels in Davis County that are providing 1 or 2 rooms for hotel vouchers for people who are cold at night and living on the streets. And so that's kind of the temporary option, but they're looking to us and some other options. But honestly, really, the biggest option is the emissions building right now. So just want to have discussion, and this is a work item, so you guys can all talk it as you want.
Question?
Yeah.
What was the last point you said? Is this the best option they've come up with so far in the county to be here in Kaysville?
Yes, this is the best temporary option so far. Some other locations, they've considered maybe putting a shelter at the fairgrounds, which is called, what are they calling it now? Yeah, the sports park over there. They have three smaller buildings along with the big building, but there's construction. And so we said, hey, why don't you just take one of those smaller buildings and make that your temporary shelter? It's near the sheriff, it's near police, it's near restaurants, it's near transit. And they said, no, that's not an option because it's a construction site and it's too dangerous. So
Yeah, but I went down there to look at that because to me that made so much more sense than here, because as I looked at the bus routes down here in our parking ride, they're not even a normal schedule. They come in the morning, they come at night. They don't come in the day. They don't have a schedule that would be able to accommodate these people. Plus, it's within a quarter of a mile of tracks, which tracks gives vouchers. And there is a huge police presence down there, which is a good thing. But we have nothing to offer in the day when they have to leave at 7, is it 7 or 8 in the morning or something like that?
Say by 9 they have to leave.
For 9.
But we have nothing to offer.
But by 9
people.
o'clock, I don't think the buses even run in the parking right anymore. And so it just, and you said these facilities you went and toured, those are usually homeless people who are looking for a house permanently, can stay in the day. This is one of those deals where it's below 15 degrees tonight, you get to come here, but you're out in the morning.
And it's still 15 degrees outside during the day sometimes.
Still 15 degrees during the day. And we don't have anything down there to offer them. And just because the county owns a property doesn't automatically make that their okay place. So I'm a little confused how this even came up.
So I've checked with Melinda as far as our ordinances and talked to her about that. Apparently, it's a publicly owned building. It's public use. There's really nothing that an ordinance per se can do to prevent them by making this a temporary shelter. The way the law is written is that the temporary Code Blue shelter has to rotate to different cities. The thing that was concerning, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus in this discussion, I just want people to know, is that as we're walking through, Jason and I, with other members of the task force, they're saying, okay, we'll pull out this venting, we'll do this. That sounds very permanent. This bathroom needs to be bigger.
Yeah, temporary means permanent.
Yeah.
Just talk to someone in the Army.
Yes, exactly. And so we just, as a city, want to make sure that people know these discussions are happening. And we're looking for other alternatives. Now, as a task force, we have said, look, you know what if we just tell the state, none of the cities will allow a temporary shelter, and no cities want a permanent shelter in Davis County, then what's going to happen? And they said, well, if that happens, then the state will say, okay, we'll choose a place. And then we're kind of just left to the whims of the state to choose a location. So there's a line of thinking of, okay, this school, for example, the school is in Sunset. Of course, Sunset City probably doesn't want a permanent shelter there.
Sure.
They do right now, the way the law is written, have the ability to say no to it, but we can't technically say no to a temporary, I think, according to the way the law is written. But what is written in the law is that it has to rotate. So, how does that work? So they say the 3 senior centers, we're going to rotate between the 3 senior centers, and we're not going to have a permanent facility. And then Bountiful, Layton, and Kaysville every couple of years will host a temporary shelter. That's just the discussion. And Jason, go ahead. I don't mean to speak for you. I know you probably have some thoughts.
I think you covered it very well, Mayor. Thank you. I think one of the other things that I just was going to add to that was, looking at this from the standpoint of what's going to serve the target population the best, and when everyone goes out and does the point in time count of where everyone actually is, where is it in Layton, is it is it in Clearfield, and trying to identify a location that serves that need where they're already at, in addition to all the other things like transit and providing daytime services that this population would need. So.
Well, and really good point. So there is a point in time count. I think I've sent you guys information about it. I'm going to go out and do that with them for 2 nights just to see where are people congregating. I know that there are some encampments in bigger cities. Layton has several, probably other cities as well. I don't know. I've asked our police department how much of a problem do we have here in Kaysville. Not that it's not our problem. It's a statewide problem. But to the point of we have nothing to offer people in terms of support services, but they are going to where they can get some support. So where are those locations? And if we leave it up to the state to just identify a location, I would think that most likely those would be the areas that would be chosen. So anyway, you guys go ahead and share your thoughts, yes.
I have some points I'd like to make. You know, it's sad to me, and I think there's some failure on the, I'm going to speak strongly here on the state government side of things, because, you know, to the mayor's point, this is such a big issue in our state, and it's getting increasingly bigger here in Davis County and in other counties where traditionally we have not had this issue. To say that we need to rotate to different cities every year or every so often, I mean, that is not a solution, a long-term solution, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And you know what I'm concerned about? I'm very concerned about the homeless folks. I'm also concerned about our children. That one proposal from the county was the senior center, and it's across the street from an elementary school. This proposal that we're currently discussing, it's right next to the park and ride. There's train tracks there. There's houses that, I think the closest house is 0.7, maybe 0.6 miles down the street. There's really nowhere for them to go. I think I'm sad to see that even the county, the proposals that they've been discussing, senior centers, what does it do to the seniors there? Then they propose a piece of property that a billboard company owns, a well-known billboard company, and the billboard company wants to force all the cities to put their billboards up along I-15. To me, that's very disappointing in that company, that they would want to profit off of this, and it's a great location next to mental health services and whatnot. The county, when they tell us that we need to do this, but the county has not given us adequate information to make such a big decision with homelessness. And a temporary shelter, I think we need to have this, especially for those cold days. But oftentimes with government, temporary becomes permanent. And if there is a segment of the population that's constantly overlooked, it's our homeless population. And this is not everything that I've seen up to this point. All the suggestions made, the lack of information given to all the various councils, we're supposed to make these big decisions. To me, that's a failure in the leadership and how this is being laid out. And I would like to see more information. And you know, I drove past the site where the former fairgrounds at near Farmington, and to me, I would love to have a more in-depth conversation, because that is a great location with the police nearby and whatnot. But yeah, I'm really concerned about this, and I don't think city by city moving homeless shelters, temporary shelters, is a solution. I think we need to have a long-term solution that incorporates the public, the police, mental health services. I would like to have a public hearing if it's serious that the county wants to do 20 north, 600 west. I think we need to somehow notify all the residents that live in the area and let them know that that's going to be the case. I'm just very disappointed in all of this, and the state most of all, because I think these mandates, they're very challenging when the state doesn't give us resources. And it's true that the state can come in and just select a place, but even if that's the case, the public will have a much, hopefully, a front row seat to that process, and to be able to air their concerns to, you know, our state legislature and the governor. But I just think that I would like to see more information come from the county on this. I would love to see more help come from the state, but you know, this is something that we need to figure out pretty quickly. I just haven't seen the type of leadership from the county that I would hope to see.
I will just point of clarification. So the county has been tasked with this task, but they did create a task force. So they asked for volunteers from the 15 cities. So us who might be affected, of course, we're the first to volunteer. So I don't want to throw the county under the bus per se, because it will be a task force recommendation that will be implemented. You know, it will be presented from the county, but it is a task force recommendation. So right now, the information, the law just states that we have to do this, we have to have a plan in place. So we're trying to be proactively in front of that and get a plan in place. But I do completely agree with you in terms of frustration with the state, because they're just putting this mandate in place and they're saying, yeah, you guys just figure it out and fix it. And that's frustrating.
I was breathing heavy. No, I mean, like, I kind of think lack of a better word, Christ-like sentiment, it comes into play here. Like, you feel like horrible, especially I know when I'm outside and it's cold, I'm like, oh, that's, those are the first people I pray for, is the ones that don't have a place to go. I wonder if we could, I mean, I worry about the permanency and those types of things, but if we could write something into it, I actually don't mind the spot as much as, like, because it is pretty much away from, for the most part, people. Maybe you guys have done a lot more digging into it, but I would be more pro it if we had something in writing that said we're going to do this for X amount of years, and that the state was going to pay for like a chartered bus that comes at night and a day that takes to maybe 3 or 4 different spots where their locations are during the day. I mean, that's the only way I could see that working, because otherwise you open the door and they just start walking around. I mean, they wouldn't know where to go, or maybe they'd figure that out. But if there was some type of a way if that building could serve as a place for them to be warm, and it was a brought in and brought out, I wouldn't see a problem with it.
So the state has, or the county, the task force, sorry, I keep saying the county, the task force is making a recommendation to say, hey, we need bus vouchers. The problem is that.
No, I'm talking about like a chartered,
just a chartered bus.
Yeah, like an actual bus that shows up at that time.
They are
And
talking to UDOT, or not
Okay.
UDOT, UTA. I'm having a hard time talking tonight. But yeah, UTA. They are having discussions with UTA about that. And it's already written into the bill. I think they can only be at that location for 2 years, and then it has to rotate. I think that's the way the bill reads.
Until they change the bill.
Until they change the bill to make it a permanent shelter, right, exactly. So, I mean, and really, mostly it's just, we need ideas, we've got maybe 12 people on our task force, or 15. If you know of any properties, if you know of different locations, if you know of abandoned buildings, we need ideas so that we have some options, to be able to provide some options, because, the emissions building, it's being used right now, but they could relocate the people that are using it. And it is kind of away from residential. It's like a half a mile away from actual homes, really, kind of. There's some within walking distance. But the problem is, like Jason said, we don't have anything to offer. We have no food. There's no soup kitchen there. There's no ability to really make food there. They're too far away from restaurants. The bus lines currently don't operate during the time that they would need it.
right. In
So,
some ways, the
there's
not having
problems.
food is beneficial, because it's like, what this is here for is for you to get warm, and
That's true.
not like, because you start doing, I mean, not to say that you wouldn't have food, I'm not, that sounds horrible, but I'm saying the more that you start making that a cozy place, the more it's going to become a place that everybody's going to want to go. But if it's just a place that you come to get warm, and then they walk out and there's like, well, there's nothing here, there aren't even cars for me to get some money to help me out, they're going to want to go to their places where they feel more comfortable doing that, I would think. I don't know, are we speaking like a bad way? I don't know. I'll stop.
When you look downtown, right, they have the well-known shelter near the gateway. And they tried breaking that up into 4 different shelters throughout Salt Lake City, right? And that's failed tremendously in terms of the homeless population has migrated to where they can find services, to where they can find those needs. When the state tried breaking that up, it just failed thus far. And I think what you're saying here is are we going to then have the same failure here by bringing in people to stay overnight, and then they don't have a place to go during the day? So where are they going to end up migrating throughout the county, right? Or wherever they end up migrating?
Yeah.
Yes.
To the point of the county, they don't want to go to the Western Sports Park because they have a $55 million bond
I agree with that. I think we should.
And John, this is a tough one because you feel heartless, and yet I feel our responsibility as a council is to the 33,000, primarily, first and foremost, to the 33,000 residents of Kaysville, where there is not a homeless problem, and by kowtowing to the county or the state, all of a sudden we create a homeless problem within Kaysville, because during the day, even if there's a charter bus or there's the other buses, there's a number of them that won't leave. And then we end up with panhandlers, by McDonald's and by Arby's and by, throughout. And that's a concern. You talk about the senior centers. You say you're going to rotate, but guess what? The numbers are going to grow, and all of a sudden, each of the 3 senior centers are each these cold blue shelters. And next to that school, what a stupid idea. I mean, even I think of the cold blue shelter or cold shelter is the fact that is for families. Is there going to be protection? Is there going to be someone who's drug testing? Is there protection for the minors that may be there? And none of that's going to happen. And so
They'll do a mental health screening in terms of if someone is acting out, and they'll make them go to Davis Behavioral Health or somewhere like that, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, it's a concern, and how do you solve the problem? The state has been trying for a few years, and Pioneer Park's still pretty miserable down there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And just to your point, I want to know, how has the county answered or mentioned, how are people actually going to get to this location? Are they going to bus them from Salt Lake?
Right.
Are they going to bus them from Ogden?
It's designed right now to just support people who are in Davis County. And so, and really, you guys, it's just a discussion. It's just, I'm on the task force, and I feel like it's my responsibility to share with you what we're talking about on this task force.
Oh, and can I mention, you've been fantastic on the task force.
Oh, thank you.
Tammy's really been pushing Mayor Tran. I feel like you've been slowing down the task force a little bit in trying to get them to look at more options that would be very suitable, and so thank you. And I didn't mean to cut you off, I apologize.
No problem.
But thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. This is just a work, we wanted to make sure that, people are aware. I don't know that we really have a say either way in the end, but we do want people to know these are discussions, if you have other ideas out there, if you're listening or if you're driving around and you've got some suggestions, please make them, because we need them. We've got a lot of people who really care. Everyone cares about this, and we all want to be part of the solution, but what is the solution? And so, anyway. But I appreciate the discussion, you guys. We don't have to belabor it, and we don't have to continue it, but.
Can I just say
yes,
something
for
real
sure.
quick? I guess just because I've had some thoughts on it, and I'm not saying I'm either way. I go back and forth, and I definitely am not sure if I think that the emissions center is a great place for it. But it's hard for me, especially when I think of my other council member friends, and I get it, I'm elected to represent Kaysville, I'm here for Kaysville, but it's hard to say, no, we don't want that here, put that in your city. And it's difficult to feel accountable to the other cities that are nearby saying, no, you do that. And I'm not saying anyone here is suggesting that, and I think it's been handled really well, especially like John said, it's a hard thing to talk about. It's a hard thing to say and to try to get across, and I think we've done a good job here tonight. I think my only thing is, if we're gonna find a successful solution, we have to be thinking about it all together. Like you've been saying, the task force has been doing. I wish I could talk, all of us as councils or as representative of council could come together and talk to all the other cities and come up. And I know that's kind of what the task force is there for, but I feel like it would be productive for all of us to come together because, and maybe this is kind of going a little bit off to the side, but I grew up in West Valley, and but I went to an East Side high school, and I don't know how many of you guys know the dynamics between East and West Salt Lake, but it's a special situation. And it was hard, going to the other side of town and essentially having people say, gosh, excuse me, we don't want to fund education over on your side of the town. And it's very conceptual. I'm not saying everyone's wrong in every way, but to say, we don't want to do that, we don't want to be part of that solution is, I think, another not great way to look at it. So I guess just moving forward, just to continue to work with the other cities and to find a solution that, because the people, we're trying to protect our residents from the many difficult situations this arises, but the other piece of this is the homeless people who also additionally need help. So to find the best solution for them that will be safe for all residents, I think is an important thing to think about. Sorry, I know it's really broad, but.
No, you nailed it. That's exactly the goal. That's exactly 100% the goal.
Where are they? You guys found, like, are there any, I don't know how you track that?
Yeah, so there's a point in time count, which is, it's January, let me look really fast.
So I wanted to go.
Okay, yes, it's January 25th, 26th, and 27th. And I've got the QR code and the little picture thing, the graphic that goes with it, so that you can register to be a volunteer. I'm going to go, I know Mayor Petro from Layton will be there, Clearfield Mayor Shepherd will be there, the county will be there, because I need to see what they're talking about, right? I want to visually experience this and really help me to become more understanding of the problems that exist. So we'd love as much help as possible.
Yeah, but
So-
if they're in Layton, I mean, if there's like, 10,000 in Layton, it'd be like, okay, Layton, you should.
And
build a place.
there's honestly not. So I think last year when they did the point in town count, they found 64 people during those three nights. They do 3 nights from 1:30 in the morning till like 4:30 in the morning or something. It's in the middle.
People in all of Davis County?
I think so. It was under 100.
And where would, like, the majority of them were where?
They won't, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna get more into, sorry, you guys, this meeting's gone really long, so, anyway.
Well, don't call me back, let me at least sit them up.
Okay.
Or you want me to stand here?
No. Okay, anyway, that's all I have to present. City council members, do you have anything to report? Jason?
Mayor, just 2 quick things. Last meeting, we talked about scheduling a work session, which will be Friday morning, February 2nd at 8 a.m. here. And that'll be the first of 3 work sessions dedicated to kind of the long-term capital needs issues, like, one will be dedicated to roads and underground utilities, one on building needs and power. Anyway, we also wanted to start scheduling meetings to discuss the upcoming budget for FY 24-25. And we were wondering if we could schedule that on the 18th, the next council night. So it would be at 4:30, 2 hours before the normal meeting would start. And just wondering if that would work for everyone's schedules. 4:30 next on the 18th.
How does that look, everybody? It works for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So that'll be the first of multiple budget work sessions, but we wanted to get that on the scheduled too. So great, thank you very much. Then the other quick thing was just an update on the outage management system that was going to roll out this week. We had a couple of issues that we thought it'd be best to kind of hold off. One was we just had some unanticipated staff absences for some key staff this week in the power department. Number 2 was, frankly, our Yukon power distribution management program had been having some issues. It's a different program from the OMS, but we wanted to address some of that before we roll this out. So we haven't put out that mass text yet to all the residents saying, start doing this. We'll do that very soon, but just wanted to let you know we kind of put this on hold for a week until we're 100% ready. But feeling very comfortable with everything. Just a couple of minor things we wanted to delay 1 week. So in case you're wondering why that hasn't rolled out yet. And that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Does anyone else have anything to report or comment on, or no? Okay.
So I'll just stand up.
Yeah, looking for a motion to adjourn then.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us and listening, and